Hey there, this is Andre. You're about to dive into the course. But here's the truth. Most people won't finish this course. Why? It's because doing a course from the comfort of your home is going to take something away that is one of the most critical parts of doing anything challenging and worthwhile. Accountability. It's a lot harder to stop going to elementary school than to stop watching an online course, right? But here's the thing. There is a way to guarantee right now that you will finish the course and you will get through the ZTM courses no matter how hard they get. And trust me, it's going to get hard because we want to teach you really valuable skills. And they are valuable because they're hard to acquire. And this is why you're here. If you don't finish the course, it's a waste of your money. But if you finish the course, we truly believe it will get you the skills that you want. So this is what you're going to do that might put you outside your comfort zone, but it will be extremely effective in increasing your chances of success. Ready for it? You're going to come join our online classroom. In the next lecture, I'll provide a private link only for ZTM students. In there are 3 things I will ask you to do. 1 is to introduce yourself to the community. You can share as little or as much as you want about yourself. I'm going to finish X course by this date, and put that date in your calendar too. Number 2, go to Accountability Buddy's channel. Oh, that's a mouthful. And find someone who is starting a ZTM course right now at the same time. It doesn't have to be the same course, and you can have multiple partners. You're going to make sure that you each finish the course and the goals you set out to do. Finally, number 3, hang out in the general chat and talk about anything that you want. You will also have course-specific channels that you can chat in. You want to be surrounded by other learners like you to stay motivated and being part of a class. Now in here, we're also going to have virtual hangout sessions with myself, other ZTM instructors, and students. I recommend having the Discord server open as you go through the course and as you are learning. Now, I'm not saying this to sell you something. This is simply a fact of learning. When you learn in a group, when you surround yourself with other learners, when you have accountability, you are more likely to succeed. It's a fact. Finally, throughout the course, as you encounter problems or challenges, don't give up. Come back to our Discord server and ask questions and get help. But most importantly, as you start to learn and grow your skills, come here and help out other students. Teaching and helping others is one of the best ways to retain the information you just learned. If you create this routine around your learning, opening up Discord, start watching the lessons, surround yourself with others that have similar goals to you, you will have the accountability and the support system to finish the course. I promise you. Oh, and another fun bit, when you finish the course, you post your certificate in the alumni channel to become an alumni. And then who knows, the people that really are stars of the community become star mentors. Ooh. Now, this all may sound silly. You may say that you don't need anybody. But trust me, we've been doing this for many years, and there is this consistent trend of those that finish the course, get hired, and find success in their careers. You have to do the things that are uncomfortable sometimes to succeed. So that's it. See you in the next lecture and see you in our community.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this course. So what are we going to learn? Let's start off with letting you know who I am. Hi, I'm Daniel. I have over 10 years of experience working as a product designer in a variety of different industries, whether it was blockchain, whether it was healthcare, housing, everything. I love to help teams build some amazing products with huge impact. But let's get into what you're going to learn about motion design. You're going to learn about motion design. It's going to be great. We're learning so many different things in several different lectures about why motion design is so darn important. We're also going to get comfortable with smart animate and interactive components. That means we're going to build a bunch of different things like a messaging app or drag and drop interactions, like interactions, cool, delightful cart experiences, and confetti pops, grocery lists. We'll learn about all the motion design principles, things like transformation, masking, dimensionality. We'll also learn about the motion design process, which is super important. We'll learn about storyboarding, how you can use it in your process, and the proper steps to take to start testing your prototypes. And let me tell you, there are so many projects. We'll be building projects like landing pages, different types of inspiration apps, smart home apps, a National Geographic carousel, renovation landing page and estimation calculator, even a food delivery app. And don't let me forget, but join our private online community on Discord. I have to say, without a doubt, that this is one of the best resources from ZTM. We have other students, mentors, and even instructors like myself that are always willing to help if you have a question, just want to share your work, or want to have a great discussion. Let's jump right in because I'm super excited. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about the misconceptions of motion design. Let's get into this. So, motion design is a crucial element in making users' interactions with a brand's digital products more streamlined and intuitive. I love this quote over here. Motion tells stories. Everything in an app is a sequence, and motion is your guide. For every button clicked and screen transition, there is a story that follows. This was said by Craig Denner, who formerly was at the human interface team at Apple, and this quote holds true. The problem is, motion is often an afterthought. I hear these things all the time, like focus on the other things. Motion is not a core part of the UX. People generally believe that the core of a product is all the other facets, like design, research, or UX and the UI. But this ultimately means that the motion is separate from the design process and doesn't play a large role in the usability of products, which is wrong. This belief neglects examples like, say, the Pinterest app, where motion is used to simply and effectively transition users from a list view maybe to a detail view with minimal impact during major context switching. And you can see it on the side here in this example, whether it is, clicking on a form and moving to the next screen and transitioning, tracking your progress and your completion. That isn't possible without motion. This one's a doozy. We can add motion later. You can't. Well, you can't do that effectively, at least. Motion is generally not considered in the bulk of work it takes to create a digital product. And there's this idea here where people think that once everything else has been completed, then they can just tack on motion later without giving it much thought. That's not really going to be effective. When people think like this, they neglect to think about all the ways motion has affected interaction concepts that couldn't exist otherwise. If we take a look on the left here, if the user is going to, say, scroll up and leave a review, that keyboard, the iOS keyboard that's popping up nicely from the bottom, that is an entirely motion-dependent interaction there. Or the iOS app switcher, it's super important. Let's think about this one over here. Motion is just animation. And, I know many people are guilty of saying stuff like this, but it isn't entirely true. Animation includes things that move and draws from our understanding of classic animation. Think like Disney animation. Generally, when people think like this, they just think of motion as a way to add personality to a design and product. And, that is true because motion can do that, but motion is so much more. People tend to forget is that although helpful, the animation principles that are set out by Disney aren't as relevant as the motion design principles for digital products because they're solving two entirely different problems. On the right here, we do have a lot more animation, which, is pretty rare, but it is solving that problem of showing, those friends being invited. and being part of that group there. But those are the common misconceptions I always hear about motion design. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about how motion supports usability. Let's jump right in. It's unfortunate that many places treat motion as an afterthought because of these untrue beliefs that we talked about. More specifically, treating motion as an equal to UI animation, where UI animation is almost always used in a way to provide delight to users or a cosmetic change that has no bearing on how successful the UX is. Contrary, motion is not this. Motion is behavior. And behaviors can only help or hinder the user experience. Motion design must support usability in several ways, so let's go through what those ways are. When users interact with UI elements, what motion behaviors do they expect to see? Does motion meet the expectation or cause confusion? When I ask myself this question, I'm thinking about how users perceive what an object is and how it's going to behave. We want to minimize the gap between what the user expects and what they experience. Are interactions consistent across the user experience? Here I'm thinking about a couple of things: user flow and the general consistency of the UX. Intercontinuity, which is the continuity within a scene, and intercontinuity, the continuity within a series of scenes that make up the total user experience. So is it what's happening within this one little animation over here, or this one little interaction, or is it moving from screen to screen? We need to make sure those interactions are very consistent, whether it's the speed of the animations or just how gentle they can be. Do the interactions and motion behaviors create a logical progression of events? Are interactions and the motion behaviors they trigger tied to a logical progression of events that satisfies the user's intent? When we design experiences, we need to make sure that the moments and events that we prototype and design connect together in a logical way throughout the entire user experience. That means if I'm going into a scene like this, is it a card that expands into that scene? It's logical that it would. And lastly, how do the spatial, aesthetic, and hierarchical attributes of UI elements relate to each other and influence user decision making? So how does motion impact the various element relationships that exist? Things like the different elements on the screen. What happens when it shifts from page to page or section to section? What does that impact essentially mean for each element in the user experience? We have to be very thoughtful. And if we do these things properly, not only will our designs and user experiences just be generally better, but they will be so much more usable thanks to motion. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about something very interesting here, which is narrative and mental models. So let's jump right in. Simply put, motion serves as an explanation to the user of how one gets to and from various places in the user interface. This explanation can be thought of in terms of coherence, the degree to which the explanation aligns with the UX, content, and mental models. This narrative over here on the left, it would not have been possible without motion. To imagine this without motion, you gotta play the interaction with a simple cut. No nice transitions from one screen or one interaction to the next. What you are left with is that the beginning and end states of the interaction are conceptually distant. Motion connects these two conceptually distant ideas and offers a coherent explanation. Think about this one as well. In this view, motion is a fundamental part of the user experience, both from a design methodology and from what the user experiences actually. So clicking on a plus or a negative button is bringing those cards in with the controllers, just showing you the number of players. It's a nice, clean way to introduce a new concept. Emotion is fundamental. Motion is not just an add-on, but something that requires deep consideration during the design of any two screens or even a simple interaction. Think of ways to actively use it throughout your design process. Mental models exist in the minds of users and designers alike. When we create products for others to consume, we need to keep in mind that when the user interacts with that product and trying to make sense of it, they have their own mental models. The design of the system itself and the mental models of the designer, like you, me, anyone. This is essentially how we make sense of the products we use, with a shared understanding of how things should work. Motion plays a very large role in how users perceive what objects are in the interface and what they are and what they do. So with that being said, motion plays a large role in mental models and specifically in how users perceive what objects in the interface are and what they do. Motion does this by using our existing mental models or by creating new ones. And motion can do this by using a combination of 3 different methods. Number 1, skeuomorphic behavior. We have existing mental models for interacting and navigating our physical environment. If we can understand these mental models, we will be successful at interfacing with a user's perception and reasoning. In this example, you can see that even just pulling up gives you that bouncy feeling, what you would expect like from a ball. It's kind of like mimicking real life. And when we have different interactions that use these types of skeuomorphic behaviors, it's almost like we're making or connecting that thought in our brain with what we're expecting something to do when we slide it up or down too much. Rules. As humans, we are wired to learn rules. Generally, as a designer, we are taught never to make the user think about the design they are using. Or to put that more simply, we don't want to have our user learn new systems or rules, right? Like you want to have an easy design. But there is opportunity. All user experiences have and will continue to have state changes. This is essentially the change from one thing to the next, an interaction or a screen change. Simply put, there is always going to be a gap between those two things. This gap forces the users to learn, and we are more than capable at learning interaction patterns because of this. Motion plays a significant role in defining and reinforcing new rules, interactional and visual cues. Visual cues in static designs imply that there is some sort of cause and effect in the interface. The motion behavior, the effect, is what comes after the initial cue. That motion either aligns or conflicts with these cues. And this is a big opportunity for designers to get right. Motion really does have the potential to connect with user mental models and drive product results. So using motion in digital products is a very powerful tool. This is true for designers who look to make a great product that connects with users. It can be very challenging to deliver on because of its natural complexity, but when it's done well, it has the potential to really connect with a user's mental models and create a successful product. Hey everyone, and welcome back. You may have been thinking, Daniel, you've been saying things like interactions and whatnot and all that. So let's get into what a micro interaction is. Despite being small, micro interactions have the power to make the experience of your product more effective and human. So let's take a look at the definition of a micro interaction. Micro interactions are contained product moments that are meant for a single use case. And those little moments are a large part of our daily interactions with products. So think every time you're setting your alarm could just be like the little notches over here, setting those, or checking your notifications, having something pop up or something like that, or adding something to your online cart. You are engaging with micro interactions when you're doing all these different types of things. A well-designed micro interaction will make the user experience smooth and easy. Micro interactions can be a great tool for communicating the tone of your brand as well. Think of Facebook reactions. These can go on to be a part of your brand's signature moments that increase adoption and customer loyalty. It's really hard to think of a brand like Facebook without these anymore. And even the thumbs up is synonymous with Facebook at this point. Hey everyone, and welcome back. I know you all want to learn a little bit more about micro interactions, so we'll get right into it. There is a structure that makes micro interactions effective, and it was created by Dan Stafford in his book, Micro Interactions, Designing with Details. And there are 4 essential parts to a micro interaction, like we're looking at right now. There's the trigger, rules, feedback, and modes and loops. So let's get into what those are. So number 1 is the trigger. This is what starts the micro interaction. It could be a user initiated trigger, like a user clicks a button or one of the icons that you see over here, or it can be initiated by the actual product itself. Think of a notification that a user is getting. Number 2, we got rules. These determine how micro interactions respond to a trigger, while also defining what happens during that interaction. So what happens when you tap on an icon? Does it jingle? Does it fill? Does that little ball indicate that it's active? Number 3, we get feedback. This tells the user what is actually happening during a micro interaction. Inputting a wrong password and receiving an error, or inputting the proper email and actually getting through to the next form input. This is a great way to alert users that they have done something wrong, and it will guide them to proceed properly. And the last one is the loops and modes. These are the meta rules of a micro interaction and how it changes when used. Understanding the structure of a micro interaction allows you to design ones that make a difference. So with loops and modes, these rules could be like, whenever you click something, does it change every time you click it, or does it just repeat? Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about what elements are essentially a micro interaction. You may be thinking, it could encompass a substantial number of digital elements, and that's true, but not every element is part of a micro interaction. Things that don't move and are always static are not part of a micro interaction. Think entire flows that have multiple actions are not micro interactions. Maybe those smaller actions in the flow are. And here are some examples of what micro interactions are. So scroll bars are considered micro interactions. A user triggers that scrolling. There's that visual feedback to a user changing the location on the page. Or an alarm. A system triggers that alarm and there's instant feedback to some sort of time condition being met. Think interactive buttons. Like if I click it, there is that feedback that something's happened, whether it's being pushed down or it turns into multiple buttons or multiple options. But if there's no feedback when a user clicks or hovers over a button, then there's really no micro interaction to be had. Think about the concept of pulling to refresh. A user triggers that by swiping downward, and some sort of visual feedback happens that there's loading content. Or even just general swiping, swiping cards out of the view, like you can see in this example. The user triggers that, and there's a visual feedback to that user action. And lastly, another example is the notification. The system that the user is using is triggering that notification that something new is happening maybe. And there's instant feedback, like that little dot that pops up, that provides the user with feedback of a new notification. So like I said, these are just 6 different examples, but there's so many more examples of elements that are moving or giving some sort of feedback after a trigger that are micro interactions. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about how micro interactions actually impact the user experience. Micro interactions don't usually get a lot of attention during the product design process. They seem like these little small details of a broader user experience. And those small details have a significant impact on the impression your product has on its users. And in most cases, the difference between products we tolerate and products we love are the quality of the micro interactions. It's essential to put a lot of focus on designing the small moments. They provide feedback to users' actions. Your product should be intuitive no matter what. That is what you should always strive for. Micro interactions are something that can help you achieve this, and they're good at providing feedback and keeping users informed. It's also vital to consider the user's journey when implementing these types of feedback. We need to look for places where the user might need feedback for reassurance. Think about sending or transferring money, like in this example below. Imagine if the user doesn't get some sort of success micro interaction or processing micro interaction or message when they click a button after sending that money. It could be really, really worrisome for some. They also help to prevent errors. Helping users deal with error states is a common UX practice, but it's much better to even prevent them from happening. When we think like this, we can create products that keep users in control of their own experience. Helping prevent form error is something we should all strive to do. When a user signs up to a new service or product, they often have to enter a username and password. Often they are met with errors after they click the submit button that tells the user that the username has been taken. We can easily handle this with inline validation. It saves users from potential extra work, like you see in this example right here, showing you that the password is too weak and it's meeting all the criteria as you fill it out. Or undoing. Sometimes we make mistakes and click things accidentally. Your product should make it easy for a user to undo that action like you see here. Micro interactions communicate the state of a component and suggest that further action is probably possible. It's one of the perfect ways to support this. There's also seamless interactions that they could really help with. The less effort users need to invest in an interaction, the better usability of the product. This is why we strive to create seamless interactions that don't require too much effort. Micro interactions can really help here as well. Swipe actions, like we have in this example. Swiping allows the user to easily move throughout a list instead of constantly tapping. It's so much more easier. Or even in pulling to refresh. This is an excellent example of a micro interaction that is triggered by the user. This allows users to pull down a list of items to receive more information, like emails or more posts. It makes the experience of browsing data much more smooth and manageable. Micro interactions definitely encourage engagement as well. Using emotion in your product design makes it possible to form a better connection with your users. Like animated feedback works really well here, like a heart animation or a confetti pop for a successful task completed. It is possible to achieve a better result when a user achieves important goals or finishes a task. And these moments can be reinforced with micro interactions. By doing this, you'll create a sense of achievement and can make that moment a little bit more special for your users. And lastly, they can really help you communicate the tone of your brand. Micro interactions should always have a purpose, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to capture your brand. If your brand tone is fun, colorful, and joyful, it's okay to try to recreate that within your micro interactions. But this only works if it matches your branding. Could you imagine if you saw stuff like this with a banking institution? I don't think I would trust my money with them. But if that is your brand, like say Facebook, trying to be fun, trying to be, a little silly at times, I think it definitely can really help reinforce that. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to do a quick recap because we just had a bunch that we just learned about, and I want to make sure we grasp some of the most important concepts. So what did we learn? Motion design is a very crucial element in making users' interactions with a brand's digital product more streamlined and intuitive. We also learned that there's lots of misconceptions though, but they're all wrong. We also learned that there are so many assumptions about motion design that are very wrong, and it's often treated like an afterthought. Motion design supports usability in several ways, whether it's when users interact with UI elements, like what motion behaviors do they expect to see, or interactions consistent across the user experience. Do the interactions And motion behaviors create a logical progression of events. And how do the spatial, aesthetic, and hierarchical attributes of UI elements relate to each other and influence user decision making? And simply put, motion serves as an explanation to the user of how one gets to and from various places in the interface. Motion plays a very large role in mental models, and specifically in how users perceive what objects in the interface are and what they do. We also learned about microinteractions. We learned that they're contained product moments that are meant for a single use case, and those little moments are a large part of our daily interactions with products. We learned that there are 4 essential parts to a microinteraction. Number 1 being the trigger, number 2 being rules, number 3 being feedback, and 4 is modes and loops. But most importantly, we learned that not every element is a microinteraction. Don't forget to join our private online community on Discord. I promise you that this is one of the best resources from ZTM. We have other students, mentors, and even instructors like myself that are always willing to help if you have a question or just want to share your work or want to have a great discussion.
Oh, hello there. Didn't see you there. This is Andre. Just a quick little secret here. This course has 2 paths. Now, most of you are coming to this course with different levels of experience. So what should you do? Well, if you are still new to Figma and you don't know that much about Figma, the next section is an introduction to Figma. So continue with the course, keep watching the lessons in order, and we'll introduce you to the basics of Figma so you can follow the rest of the course. For the rest of you who are familiar with Figma, maybe you've taken one of our previous courses, or you just know your stuff, you have some experience as a designer, well, in that case, you can skip through the next section, which is the introduction to Figma, and jump to the section after that because we dive straight into motion design. All right, let's go have some fun. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. I just want to talk a bit about the plans that are offered here and how you can sign up. So when you're here, you can go to pricing, and if you just want a free account, you can choose that starter account and create your own account, whether it's like, signing in through Google or your own email. You'll be able to easily get set up. But I did want to mention that since you all are part of ZTM, you can get a free education account, which will give you access to things like the professional account, what you can do there. So free for students and educators here, you'll have unlimited Figma files, unlimited version history, shared and private projects, so many things, and team libraries. Like that's huge for design systems. So let's do that again. Pricing, go to free for students and educators. And over here, you're going to go click Get Verified. And this is where you're going to sign in and go through the process of verifying which school you're from. Since ZTM is a recognized school, you can enter how long you'll need to use Figma and you'll get verified really, really quickly. So go through that process of creating your account with a free account and then getting verified afterwards. It's super easy. So make sure that you visit the Figma community. You can go to education program and come here to get verified for that. And that is all you're going to need to do to start that process. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about Figma. So if you haven't used Figma before, this is the Figma website. You can come here to take a look at what it's all about. I mean, everyone uses Figma these days, but it's a great way for you to design and collaborate. You can prototype and share so many things. You can create components and design systems, and engineering handoff is made so easy. So many things you can do with Figma, and that's why we're going to use it to build what we need to build in this course. So remember, you can come to this website called figma.com, and all you're going to do is select Get Started for free, and this is where you're going to come here. You're going to create your account and get started. But this is what we're going to be using to build our designs and our prototypes. Hey everyone, welcome back. You will need to go to Figma downloads to get the app for Mac or Windows. This is what you'll be using, or if you want to just use it in your browser, you can come here and log in and you can use it within your browser. You can start a new design file and you'll have everything ready over here. Super easy to use if you want. And yeah, Figma can be used anywhere. So desktop or browser, totally up to you. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So I'm going to be showing you how to use Figma within the browser right now. I have a brand new account set up, so it kind of may look like yours if you've never used Figma in the past. So when you first log in, you'll have like your account section up here where you can set like your theme. You could set things like your settings. You could set things like whether you want to get the desktop app, you can get it from here as well. You can add accounts, you can log out. I like to use the dark theme because it's just so much easier on the eyes. You can do searching up here. You can search for files, teams, or people. Mainly, you're going to be searching for files if you're not on the actual team. I think the other thing to show you is like your recent files, if you've opened up recent files. So I have like so many files in here like that I've used in the past that I've opened with this account. And then you have your drafts. Your drafts over here are going to be your files that you've basically that have no project. So if I create a new design file and I go backwards, I can see that that design file is just going to be in my drafts if I don't create a project for it. So that's what you'll have there. And working in draft is just a great way to experiment with different ideas by yourself. So if you choose to, you can always share your draft with other people or move that file from your drafts into like a project. And another thing is you'll have your notifications up here. So if anything comes up like comments on files and stuff like that, those are where your notifications are going to be. So this is the basic account overview. Now, if I create like a favorite, you can favorite files now and you can have those files over here. You also have like different teams you have that you're a part of. So if you have like a team project, you can put files in your team project. So, and those favorite files will also show up there and you can kind of like, just stack them and put them in different order. But that's essentially what the sidebar consists of within the basic Figma area over here. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So we have the files. Now I want to teach you a bit about what you can do with files. You can create a new design file. You can also import a file from like your desktop if you have one. That's going to be rarely the case for you. Most of the time you're going to have like duplicated files in here and all that. Now, when you come into a file, you can do a couple different things. You can come into this area, especially with files that are going to be given to you through the course. You're going to have to duplicate that file, but because you won't be able to edit it. So make sure you do that. In here, you can do a couple different things. You can duplicate that file. You can rename the file. Like we can call it our test file. And you can duplicate it and it'll just open up a new tab for you. And if I go back to my files up here, I can see that I have like my test file and my test copy. So that's the one I just made. You can also like right click on it to delete it if you want. And you can do a lot of that stuff over here. You can add it to your favorites and so on. So I'm just going to delete this test copy file, but that's essentially it. And when you do open up a new file, you'll notice that this is like the canvas area. So you come here, you have a bunch of different things. You have your canvas area, you have your right sidebar, your left sidebar, you have the toolbar up here, but we'll get into that shortly. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be talking about the toolbar. So everything up here, there's so many things up here. Let's get into it. So up here, we're going to start with over here, your main menu. So in your menu, if you just click that, you can do a bunch of different things here. You can go back to your files. That's your way to navigate backwards. And you have the file area over here. So here you can perform file level permissions, including importing and exporting. You have editing stuff that you can do here. You can access, undo, redo, copy, paste, and advanced selection functions. Over here, we have view options. Here you can do so many things. Control view settings for your layout grids and rulers, perform zoom functions, and navigate within a file. We have object selections, so you can apply object level functions like grouping, framing, rotating, and much more. We have text. Here you can format text with bolds or italics and set size, height, and spacing. We can arrange, tidy up objects with alignment and distribution functions. And we have so many other things like even vector options over here. You can even manage your plugins at this point. So you can view, manage, and run any plugins you have installed. You have other integrations like with widgets. And we have preferences over here. Preferences are great because they allow you to just adjust like what things are great for you, the way certain things move, like your steps within when you're holding shift and your arrow keys. You can do a bunch of different things like how you can automatically rename like duplicated layers or highlight layers on hover. So great tool. The other thing over here is the libraries. So you can access your libraries from here. I want to also note that in the help and account section, you can access your keyboard shortcuts over here. So if you click that, you can bring it up. You can see your shortcuts for everything. So you'll notice that I'm using a Mac, and so those are like the command sign, but if you're on Windows, you'll see your control sign. So sometimes you may see me doing something. I may not necessarily like explicitly mention it. So here's a good place to come in and take a look for that. Another thing I want to navigate to are the actual tools that you'll see up here. So we have like the move and scale tools. We have your framing, section, and slice tools. We have your rectangle, all your shape tools over here. We have your pen tool, which is a great tool to actually, start creating shapes and stuff like that. We have a text tool, basic, create text. Also, this area now has the hand tool and comment tool, but we also have resources, so components, plugins, widgets, all that kind of stuff, all up here. In the middle, we have contextual tools. So if I have like a rectangle, you'll have contextual tools. So if you're selecting something on the canvas, you'll have the ability to like edit the object or make it a component. You also have like Boolean operations up here. So, and masking operations. So if I have like two rectangles, you'll see that it starts to kind of change a bit. You have Boolean groups, you can like create subtractions and stuff like that and all that fun stuff. So, take a look for that. We'll discuss things like this in the course as well. And up here we have, if you want to use sections, so you can wrap things in sections as well, but we'll get into that later. I do also want to talk about this little drop down here. We have so many settings for the file. I talked briefly about it prior, but you can duplicate, rename. I want to stress you must duplicate the files within the course, and you can manage where you have your project. So right now I just navigated directly to the drafts here, but you can move that. Over here on the right, you have your share and view settings. So you can see like the multiplayer, like who's inside this course, or sorry, this item right now, or this file. And you can also spotlight them, which means that you can watch what they're watching. The other thing is you can like share here pretty easily. So, this is where you're going to do sharing or publishing it to like the Figma community. And you have dev mode that is currently still in beta, but you can basically, see what dev mode looks like. And we have presenting. So if you have any files, like they will show up here. So this is good for prototyping. It'll bring up a new tab so you can see what that prototype looks like. So really great way to, demo and everything like that. You also have your zoom and view options. So if you want to zoom in like 200% or like snap to grid, set those types of options. These view settings are all there. And there you go. That is your toolbar. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So we have our canvas here. We're in our test file. Super simple. I want to go over now what the left sidebar is. So you'll have your layers show up in here. So I have this one frame 1, this one's frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, frame 5. So you'll see all the different layers show up here, and there's different types of layers. So you see this kind of like crosshatch, that's your frame. If I turn this frame over here, frame 1, into an auto frame, it looks a little different. Or if I have a rectangle looks like its shape. Or we have an ellipse that looks like that. So different layers will have different symbols on the left side, and you can nest them. Like if I want to put that inside there, I have now a frame that has an ellipse and I have a text layer in there. So you can do a lot of different, you have different layers. You have things like frames, you have groups, you have components. So a component will look like this. So if I come here and I drag this component and go to my layers, so this is what a master component looks like, and this is what another component looks like, the instance of that component. So if I change this master component to be like red text, it's going to change the instance of the component as well. So we have a lot of different text layers like that. So we have the components, instances, text, we have shapes that I just showed you. We have also image layers as well. And we have like animated GIF, like actual video layers. So you can bring in so many different types of layers over there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was not only nesting layers, but you can rename layers on your sidebar. So you can call this circle, and you can call our master component like text, and that's gonna, you can rename anything you'd like in here. Frame could be our container. So you can rename layers as well. You can also come in here and lock layers. So I can lock this circle. Now I can't mess around with it anymore, but I can mess around with the text and drag it on top and on the bottom of this auto layout container. So you can lock and unlock. You can also hide. So show and hide is available here. Another thing is we have the assets area over here, and this is good for components. So if you're making multiple components, like if I make this a component as well, it's going to show up in my local components, and this is great for using having reusability. So if you have things like buttons, things like cards that you want to reuse in your designs, they're going to show up here. And let me see if I can actually get you one to look at. So if I come here, let's see if we can look at a possible project with lots of components. So if I open up this project over here, this one's locked. So I'm gonna have to duplicate it to my drafts. But if I come into my assets over here, I can see all the components that are available to me. I have like a cart button, I have a cart card, I have a cart overlay, I have a category card, and so I can like take that and use it. So that's essentially what the assets panel is used for. So you can access libraries as well if you want. The other thing is you have different pages. So you'll notice in this file, I have, a cover page, I have an assets page, I have a prototypes page. In this file, we only have one page. So page 1, if we go to page 2, there's nothing on page 2. So a great way to separate your content that you're working on. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about this right sidebar. So many things can happen on this right sidebar. So as soon as I open it up here and have something to select, if I select this frame, I have so many things. And let's go through them. So you have alignment and distribution. So that means that, you can align things to be in a certain way, whether it's like to the top or you want them to be kind of together, like vertically, you can do that. So it's really a great way to align objects and stuff like that. Another thing is we have like the sizing options over here, like where its position is on the horizontal plane and then the vertical plane, its width, its height. We can also rotate here as well and set a border radius on the outside. You can also clip content. if I have a rectangle inside here, you'll notice that it hangs off the edge, but it isn't showing anything. If I want it to show something, I can unclip that content. We have another thing called auto layout over here where you can, this is only going to show up on frames. So you can see like there's constraints on this one, but over here you have auto layout. So you can turn it into an auto layout frame. We'll get more into that later. With like a regular object, you have different things like you could have constraints if you're in a regular frame. So that means if this is left and right and top and bottom, that means that when I resize this, it's going to resize top and bottom and left and right. But if I only have something like left, it's not going to resize on the right side, but it will go on the left side. So you have constraints for certain objects. You have layer styles like this. You can, change the color styles, opacity, fills, strokes. You can add effects like drop shadows and layer blurs and all that fun stuff. And you can even export on this side. So it's going to be different. And even when you have text layers, like you'll have text settings over here. So you can change the font, you can change like the font weight and all the font settings that you're going to need, whether it's text size, whether it's like line height, you have letter spacing, you have paragraph spacing, and you have like whether it's like auto height and so on. So these are going to apply in the same type of way. But that's essentially your right sidebar when you're designing. When you're prototyping, you're going to have different things here. You're going to have the ability to select like if you have a device. So it's going to prototype within a device. So if I press play, it's prototyping inside a device here, even though it's not necessarily, large enough for that device. But you will have the ability to prototype here and add like a flow starting point. So if you want to add like flow 1, this is how you would split up different types of flows. You would create like new flows. And you can see an example. So I'm just going to go back to the files, and you can see I have my test here, but we're going to go to this item I have here just to show you what it looks like to have multiple flows. So when you have like multiple prototypes, I have like a tabless transition, I have a masking and overlay, I have like add to cart, I have like so many different types. And when you press play, that's going to be here for you as well to access. You'll see all those different flows. So let's go back to my files here and go to our test. Okay, so when you're actually prototyping with different flows, like you may add like an interaction. Like if I tap on something, I navigate to frame 3 or something like that if you want to create like a whole flow. But you can set all those things over there. And that is essentially right sidebar. Hey everyone, I wanted to walk you through the differences between groups, frames, and sections. So let's get into that. So we have this over here, this little thing in our toolbar over here. We can select a frame. So that's a frame. If we have, like say 3 objects, we can group them or you can frame them. But there's our group. And then we have like a section. So we have 3 different concepts. So a group is this one right here. Groups are really a great way to combine layers into a single element. They simplify the layers panel and give you a single object you can interact with on the canvas. So that means that when you have this kind of group, you can do anything you want. Great for things like logos and stuff like that. For example, if you have a collection of shapes that you want to stay together and you don't want to worry about things like constraints, groups are essentially a collection of layers and not distinct elements. So they don't have dimensions or properties of their own. So when you make changes to a group, you're actually applying those changes to each layer in the group. So things like if you're going to move it, all the layers are going to move. If you're going to rotate it, all layers are rotating. So that's our group over here, our collection of elements. and you can nest groups inside frames, and you can nest frames inside groups. So frames are going to be the main thing you use essentially to build out UIs though. So frames are another way to combine layers in Figma. Frames can act as a scaffolding for a specific device or screen size. So if I press F, I can pick like an iPhone 14 or 15 Pro. And so that's my frame I'm going to use. And you're going to be using frames way more than groups. So frames can act as like that scaffolding for a specific device or screen size, like a single page in an app design. They can also act as containers for layers that make up distinct elements, like the layers in a navigation bar. You can even put frames inside other frames. But unlike groups, frames can have dimensions and properties of their own, like fills, rounded corners. So I can essentially, create a new fill in here. With a group, I can't do that. I'm changing all the properties, or I'm giving the stroke all the properties over there. With a frame, I can nest like things inside it, but the frame itself is the one that's getting all of the properties, not the frame inside or anything inside. So they can have their own fills, rounded corners, shadows. They also have features like auto layout and constraints and layout grids. So I gave you a sneak peek of what constraints look like for items that are nested within frames. But if you have like auto layout, this is a great way to make really responsive designs. So I can like fill containers. I can make this now like super responsive. If I have text, it'll build out that auto layout container. Super, super important. You can also put things like layout grids. So if you want like a grid inside your frame, maybe not this 10 pixel grid, but you can have like columns like this. Now, sections that we've seen over here, and you've also seen it in like my prototypes over here. But with sections, the section tool allows you to designate and label a specific region of the canvas. So I can call this one like test or like my V1, and then I can make another one, and this one could be my V2. So it's like a collection of items, right? You can use sections to group related concepts and ideas or organize your designs. And sections help to draw focus, give context, and guide all your collaborators through processes. They're perfect for activities like reviews or for sharing designs for handoff. So I like to do this, and when I'm done with my designs, I'll like mark it ready for dev so that they know that this is ready. Those are the differences between groups, frames, and sections. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about some basic shapes and Boolean operations. So we have rectangles. So rectangle is R. That's our rectangle. We have these rectangles are great for both squares and rectangles. So that's what you're going to use it for. The shortcut is R. We have the line tool, which over here, shortcut is L. The line tool allows you to create lines in any direction. Lines are an effective way of breaking up content within a design or simulating like borders. So we have a line, and you can adjust the stroke if you want. We have arrows. Shift L is going to be your arrow. I'm making them white so everyone can see. But arrow tool allows you to draw one-sided and two-sided arrows. You can customize the tips or caps of the arrow's endpoints. So you can come in here and say that this is going to be like a double-sided arrow, or you want to like draw like kind of like a point like that. This is a great way to do it. And there you go. That is the arrow tool. We also have the ellipse tool. If I hold shift, I can make a perfect circle. Same with the rectangle if you hold shift. So the ellipse and circles. So use the ellipse tool to draw both ovals and circles. These can be used as they are or manipulated to create custom shapes with curved lines. Here's a big tip though. Use the ellipse tool to create other shapes like semicircles or pie charts, rings, donuts, and semicircle rings. So if we come in here, we can use the arc tool to, do stuff like that. So let's bring it in. We can modify that to create I created a letter C. Looks pretty cool, and it took me like 2 seconds. And the shortcut is O. So if I press O, I can create another one. And we have the polygon tool. We don't have a shortcut for the polygon tool, unfortunately, but the polygon tool allows you to draw an enclosed shape that is made up of any number of straight lines. So we can add 3, 5, so we can draw 6, draw many. You can adjust the radius if you need to while you do that. We also have the star tool. So I'm holding Shift to make a nice star. And from here, the star tool creates polygons that are arranged in a star shape. When you create a star layer, the default will be 5 pointed stars with 10 sides. But you can adjust your stars to be any which way you like and create more counts. And you do many things like that. We also have the pen tool that allows us to create shapes. So if I have a pen, I can create a shape like that and give it a fill and mess around with it. So I kind of already have like a location icon. So for designs that require unique or complex shapes, you can build your own vector networks using Figma's one-of-a-kind pen tool. Now let's talk about types of Boolean operations. I know I mentioned that earlier a bit, but let's take a circle and let's take a square. So if I have a circle and a square, I'll put the circle in here, make the circle like red. So I have a circle and a square. If I select them both, my Boolean operations will come. So there's a couple different type of Boolean operations. I'm going to create 4 variations of this just to show you. So the first one is called union. And so with union combines the selected shapes into a Boolean group. So if I do something like this, it is a group now, which is great. So if the objects overlap, the new shape's outer path consists of the composite of its sublayers paths, minus any segments that overlap. Now we have subtract. Subtract, if I come in here and click subtract, now it subtracts it. And over here, let's do intersect. It'll take the intersection from that. So if I double click, I'll see that between the rectangle and that is the intersection. And then lastly, we have exclude. Exclude is the opposite of intersect. Exclude shows only the areas of its sublayers that do not overlap. So if I take this and do the exact same thing, but I use exclude, it's going to take everything else but this. And there you go. Those are your Boolean operations. You're really great if you're making custom shapes or working on logos or stuff like that, but really great way to work with vectors in Figma. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about images now. So when you're designing in Figma, you may have like a card, and that card may have like an image. So there's a couple different ways to get images in here. One of the most popular ways is to use like a plugin like Unsplash. And you can access that plugin through here just by clicking and searching up Unsplash. You can access it. And here, like all you would need to do is click on your frame or your rectangle or whatever. And there you go. You can already have an image. Now let's just export that image really quickly. So I'm going to export it to my desktop. The next way to get images is to drag and drop them. So you can literally drag them and drop them into here. You can copy them from, now I have like 2 of these images. Or if I go to press Shift Command or Shift Control K, we can access our desktop and bring in an image. So we have an image file in here that's easy to use. The other thing is, let's talk about editing images. So you can scale them, you can rotate them, you can, create a border around an image, which is great. But you can also crop and reposition images applied like those layers. So here's my image. If I come in here to the fill, I can, right now it's set to fill. So that means that when it's like being resized, you'll notice that it just kind of like centers. But if I go ahead and click fit, based off of the image's ratio, it's just gonna kind of, fill that way. If I go to crop, I can basically crop a portion of it and maybe focus on like one part. But as soon as I go to move it, it's gonna skew. So I have to hold shift every time I move it now. So you can do those things to it. The other thing is you can adjust the image options. So you can adjust things like exposure, contrast, saturation, temperature. And you can mess around with that to make your image look the way you want it to look. And if you have like a certain, like say you're on like a red background, you can adjust the image's blend modes. So you can make it darken, do all that kind of stuff to images to, fit your stylistic approach. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about designing within Figma with text. So let's get started with text. So if I just, I'm going to create a frame by pressing F, and this is my frame. And I'm going to press T to bring in a text layer. And I'm just going to quickly make it very large. This frame, I'm going to size it down. So this is my text layer. I'm going to call it Hello World. So with text, you could do so many different things. Like first of all, creating the text layer is the easiest. All you need to do is press T and drop it wherever you'd like. You can resize text layers as well. You can rotate text layers. So you can do a bunch of things with text layers. But if we go into our text properties, we can set things like our font. Let's see. Like now we have like Garamond. We can set like the weight. We can set the size. If I have lots of text I'm working with, so say I'm going to use a plugin called Lorem Ipsum. I'm going to generate 5 sentences. Now it's just kind of running off, right? I'm going to bring it back here. But now I can set things like line height. So maybe I want it to be 175. I can set letter spacing, paragraph spacing. So if I have a break like that, I can set paragraph spacing. I can also set like whether it's like a fixed container or not, or if it's running as an auto width or auto height. So auto height means that it's just going to keep going vertically. The other thing that I haven't spoken about is that you can make lists within Figma. Item 1, item 2. So just using the bullet points. Item 3, you can use to create a list. If you come over here into some of the more type settings, you can do things like set it to your alignment, which you can get on this side here. You can have right align, center align, and so on. But you can do things like your text decoration. It can be underlined, strike through. You can modify the case. You can trim vertically. You can create like a list style, whether it's no lists, whether it's your bulleted list, whether it's a numbered list. You can have like your list spacing and so on. And another great thing I want to teach everyone here is just truncating text. So say you have a card and this is the title. This is a card title. and you don't want it to run more than 2 lines, right? So I would come here and say that I want to truncate the text. And I don't want it to go more than 1 line. And so now all your cards will have a title, and if it exceeds 1 line and breaks to the second line, it'll automatically bring in the ellipses. So that's how you can work with text. You can also give text like fills and strokes if you want. I don't really recommend strokes, but you can definitely give them fills to, be a different color. But that is how you work with text. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about constraints. So constraints are pretty easy to work with. So let's say this is our frame, and I'm going to have a rectangle in the middle of our frame. So there's different ways that you can deal with constraints. Constraints tell Figma how layers should respond when you resize their frames. This helps you control how designs look across different devices and sizes. So say I have, this is one, and this is my other frame, or other piece of content. So they're stacked within this frame, right? Now, you have a couple different things. You have your horizontal constraints, which are the constraints that defines how a layer behaves as you resize the frame along the x-axis. And then you have your vertical constraints, which defines how a layer behaves as you resize the frame along the y-axis. So we have top and bottom. So say this one, I'm gonna make sure that it's gonna be left, right, top, and bottom. And this one's gonna be left, right, top, and bottom. So let's see how this resizes. So you can tell that they both resize properly. But what happens if I don't care about the bottom? So like I just want it to be left and right. That's fine. And it doesn't scale anything with the bottom. So that's great. Now, there's other ways that we can deal with constraints, right? You can apply constraints to any layer within a frame. It's not possible to apply constraints to layers outside of a frame. So as you can tell, here I don't have those same constraints options because they're not inside that frame. Or layers within an auto layout frame. So if I say, make this an auto layout frame, they don't have constraints anymore because this is more of a responsive frame. But we'll get into that later. If you want to ignore your constraints, you can do that as well. So sometimes you may want to resize that frame or that layer without using the constraints that are applied to it. You can temporarily ignore any constraints applied to a layer within here, so these layers, by holding down the modifier key. So in that case, if you're an Apple user, it's going to be Command. If you're a Windows user, it's going to be Control. So if I hold down Command, we notice that I'm resizing this frame, and now finally it's working here. But if I hold Command again, it's not working. If I do it again without Command, it's working. So you can do that sometimes to just make sure that you don't want to mess around with the actual items within, and you don't want them to resize or anything. But that's what constraints are within Figma. So this is a great way to make slightly responsive designs, and we'll be using this as well, so I can showcase this to you in a project. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So I have this beautiful card here, and I just want to kind of show you what it means to have an auto layout frame, because it's kind of hard to explain without having something that's already built. So don't worry about building this. We're going to be building so many cards in this course, so you don't have to worry about that. But I just want to show you. So over here we have this beautiful card, and it is an auto layout card. So you can see that by the icon up here, and you can also see that it has the auto layout properties. Now, if we take this card and we stretch it, we see that the text within, we can make sure that we're going to enable local fonts, so that way it's going to work. Let's see. There we go. This one's going to be enter. And here we go. We don't have to worry about that. So as you can see that when we stretch this card out, our text stacks properly because it has less space. And what's happening here is that we have nested auto layout frames even within. So we have an image in here that's set to fill and fill. So that means that when you adjust a card, lengthwise and height-wise, it's going to automatically fill. So if I stopped and say hug, or I make that fixed, this card image, make that fixed on the vertical side, that it's not going to fill it anymore. Or if I say that I want to not have these fill anymore, I just want it to hug contents, it's going to wrap off. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about like a truncating text. If I hug the content and say I go into my settings and truncate text to 1, now what's going to happen is it's going to automatically fill the container, and you won't have that text. Oops, probably a little bit of a glitch. But that text is essentially going to just truncate for us. So let's play around with auto layout. So you can add more frames to an auto layout frame like we have here. We have a container with 2 text layers, which are set to fill, and they're hugging vertically. So that means that when they go to a second or third line, the auto layout frame is going to grow. We can also set this to hug. So as this kind of grows, this is set to fill now, so that's going to shrink because it's going to take up that space. The card's not hugging anymore because the vertical height is fixed. But we have a container there, and even this button is an actual auto layout frame as well, which is set to a fixed height of 48 pixels and a fill. So that means, we could hypothetically hug the content. So it's going to hug that based off of some of the auto layout properties, but we have it set to just fill the entire container with. Now let's talk about some of the properties within Figma. So you can do a couple different things here. You can, move things around within here in this container. So I have a details auto layout container or frame, and I have the container and the toggle button. So if I click and move it around with my arrow keys, I can essentially do that. Another thing is I can set things like padding and gap between items. So these 2 items right now, there's 24 pixels on the left and right and 24 pixels on the top and bottom, but I can, increase that. I can decrease that. I can also increase the spacing between. So you can do that through here. And even on individual sides as well, you can, say I want 56 pixels on the right. I don't know. That is more of a stylistic approach, but you can do it if you'd want. Another great thing is you can also say I want to have these 2 items be auto-spaced, which means that now when I stretch out this container, they're just going to make an automatic space, and they're going to, have one at the top and one at the bottom because now I have auto spacing. It's just going to automatically, move those items. You can also do different things like if you want to hide an item, you can hide them in here and it'll automatically space it out for you. I'm just going to go back so I can show you some more things with auto layout because there's so much to learn here. Another thing you can do is I have an auto layout frame with no spacing. So that way the image sits flush and all the padding is handled with here, but it's just going to be responsive for us. So that's essentially the basics of auto layout. We're going to be using auto layout a lot because we depend on it a lot to create some responsive designs, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Hey everyone, and welcome back. I wanted to talk a bit about community files. So if you come down here to the Explore Community section, you can click that. And over here, you will have a new kind of landing page where you can access things like, there's inspiration in here, there's design systems, there's plugins. So if I search up something like design system, So if I search up design system, I can see like all the files and templates that are associated with the design system. I can see what paid and free content there are. I can, go by creators and all that kind of stuff. So I can find files in here pretty easily. I can also find things like plugins and all that. But if I get a file, let's navigate to one. I'm going to just grab this one right here. So what's going to happen is you're going to come to a page similar to this. You're going to open in Figma and it's going to automatically bring it to your drafts. And now you can, easily like work on this one file. So if you need like a good kickstart on like something, that's the best way to do it. But easy way to just go and grab something from the community and use it as you need it. And you can search up anything. So I have a design system. Like if I wanted icons, some of the most popular icon kits can be found here. So I have like Iconicool. Well, there's Icon Moon, like that's another pretty big one. So definitely come here if you want to find more content like that. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on the Figma community. We're going to be talking more so about plugins, and plugins are super important to just essentially make sure your workflow is just ironclad and you're super effective. Plugins that I use, like Unsplash is a big one. So if I click Unsplash, I come over here and go to plugins, and over here you'll be able to see like these are the plugins. You can click into them. You can see like comments if there's any issues, any tags. But if I want to open, I can like, heart it. Looks good. I can bookmark it, or I can remove it, add it to my account, and I can open it. So I can open it in a new file. So say I want to open it in a new like Figma file. I can do that from that screen, but definitely use plugins because they're going to help you. And I can't stress that enough. So as we wait for this one to upload and work out for us, we can go to our files. Let's go back to our files. This one's taking a little bit of time to load, but that's fine. We'll go to our test file. So say we wanted a new image. So we can access the plugins from over here, and we can search up any plugin we want and even add them from here. So you'll need to go through the community, but say I'm going to load up my plugin. So sometimes they'll come in looking like this, and you can essentially just click and use them. Whether that's like a text related plugin, say you want to get an avatar for a little like icon or something like that. Say I'm using a plugin called Material. So I don't have that one on this account. So let's see, Material Design Icons. I'm going to search. So here's one. Here's one right here. So I'm going to run that one. So now we have this plugin. So I can bring icons in if I need to. And there we go. We have like icons that are ready, and you don't need to go searching for them. So this is the great thing about plugins. I can't stress that enough. So definitely use plugins to, kickstart your flow. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So another great thing about Figma is just sharing in general. So if I want to share, I can take like, say this kitchen card and come up here. You can click directly on an item like a frame or a layer or something like that. And you can go click share, and anyone with the link. So you can link to selection. So that means that you're linking directly to that frame in this case, and you can copy that link. And so they'll give you a link that's ready to view. There's also some settings here that you should probably really look at. Things like anyone with the link or only people invited to the file can like view or edit or, whatever. But those are the things that are great about Figma, just like collaboration. And when you have somebody in that file with you, it's going to show up here and you can see what they're doing with their cursor. We can kind of simulate that over here if we open this up. So we can see somebody's in that file, which is me. And I can see I'm going to click on here. So I can see that this Daniel over here is clicking on this item. And if I look at their screen here, I can see that, now I'm looking at this over here. It zoomed in. Now I'm just kind of like, I'm watching them, or now I'm not watching them. Now I'm watching them again. So you can see that. Another great thing is I'm going to press C and come to my comments over here and be like, this pic is nice. So I can leave a comment and I can mention somebody. There we go. And I can upload up to 5 images if I want. And I could leave like a bunch of emojis. And there we go. So now I have that comment, and here I can see that, there's that comment that's showing up, and I can add a reaction to it and even reply to it. So it's like a thread. But that is essentially how you share and collaborate. You can also access those comments from the right side over here. You can delete them if you want. I can delete this thread. I can also, say I want to resolve this comment. Now it may not show up anymore. So I can go over here and say show all resolved comments. So they'll show up like that, or only my threads. So there's a couple of different ways you can filter through comments if you want to. You can see all mentions and replies and so on. So definitely use comments when you're working with clients or you're working with your team, because that's how you're going to get better at designing, giving people access to your files so they can see. Not necessarily edit your files. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but definitely for like your product managers and your engineers to understand like what a flow is. It's a good way for you to even document a bit and make some callouts for like engineering. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be building some cool responsive things today using auto layout, and this is going to be so fun. Let's jump in. You're going to need this resource, the Figma Basics resource, and the first thing you're going to need to do here is, if you haven't already, duplicate this file to your drafts, or else you won't be able to use it. Now you don't necessarily need it because I'm going to teach you how to do it by yourself, but please duplicate your drafts so you at least have that resource. And so we have 2 pages here. We have the cover page and we have the assets page. Jump into the assets page and you will see so many things here. Don't be overwhelmed though, because what we have here is we have some elements that you're going to use. You're going to learn how to create your own logo using shapes. We're going to create some auto layout buttons. We have like a primary, a secondary, and a text button. Super awesome. We're going to create a navigation that's responsive, so it's going to be able to, shrink and grow. And we're going to take all those items that we've created and create an awesome responsive layout. So you'll be able to do something like this. So definitely get yourself excited, because not only are we going to build this, you're going to have yourself an assignment at the end where you can go about and do it yourself without watching me and using all the knowledge you learned, because you will definitely be able to do it. I promise you. Before you do start though, you're going to need a couple of plugins. So you know how to grab plugins at this point. Come up to here. You're going to need Unsplash, which is a great plugin for grabbing imagery. I promise you. And you're going to need the Lorem Ipsum plugin, which is a great plugin to grab some like fake text. So, if you want to generate like sentences and stuff like that. So great plugin. And lastly, I use the Material Design icon plugin because it's the easiest to use. You can grab an icon if I don't have an icon library on me. So if you need like an arrow icon or something like that, come into here and grab that icon. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in and create this amazing landing page. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are in our Figma basics resource, and this is going to be our resource, teach us a little bit of how to use Figma and essentially, get started and on our way to being amazing superstar designers. So let's jump in. Remember, you will not have access directly to this file, so please click duplicate when you get a chance because you won't be able to otherwise, or you can literally do this without the file if you follow along. So the first thing we're going to do is we have all these components. I mean, they're not really components yet, but we have these cool like images over here in the assets page. I want to actually create this logo. So we have this logo up here in the navigation, and I want to show you how to create it really quickly. So what I did was I pressed O for the shape layer, and I'm holding down shift, and there we go. I have my shape layer right there. Now, I talked about this a bit before, but what you're going to do is you're going to create an arc. So I have this kind of arc, and that's good. Then I'm going to, just tilt the start up so that way it's right in the middle. It kind of looks like Pac-Man, doesn't it? Then I'm going to fix the ratio. So now we have this kind of like C. I don't know what this company is called, but they're called maybe something like Cloud Confidence, or like they're a cloud company. I don't know. But that is going to be our company logo. It looks cool. I'm going to press I now as my shortcut, or you can come in here into the fill and use the eyedropper tool and just grab that color. And there you go. At this point, you should have a little icon logo that matches something like that. So please take your time. If you didn't follow along, that's cool. Replay the video. Sure, it was like 3 minutes, not even, but literally a couple different things that we did there to make a quick little modified shape here. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be creating some auto layout buttons. So at this point, you've learned a little bit about auto layout, and this is how I create like all of my buttons and how you probably should be creating all your buttons, because I swear this is the easiest way to make a responsive button. So let's get into this right now. We're going to create this button first. I'm going to copy it. So Command C or Control C, Command V, Control V, copy that button, drag out a copy. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a text layer. So press T, and I'm going to press get in touch, or we can just say label. So that we're just going to keep it simple. We got label. You can set whatever text properties you want here. You can copy what I have. I think I actually have it like exactly the same. At this point though, what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift A, and that's going to wrap this already in a frame, but it's going to be an auto layout frame. So you can do that even by right clicking and, framing the selection. So you can do that, or you can add layout, auto layout. So, but I'm just going to press Shift A, and there's that frame. You can't really see it, but I'm going to call this my primary. So this is my primary button. At this point, you're going to add a fill. So come over to the right sidebar, click plus, and you got a white fill automatically. But let's get that eyedropper tool and select that beautiful indigo color. Here, if we want to match it exactly, so I like to use heights with my button, so I'm not worried too much about the spacing when it comes to the vertical spacing, so I'm just going to leave it at 0. But I like to use heights, so this one's at 44 pixels. So let's come up to here and select 44 pixels. So that's a beautiful height for a button. Over here, what we're going to do is there's 24 pixel padding left and right. Let's do the exact same thing. So we got 24. Boom, looks good. We don't need to worry about the spacing over here. We'll do that with another button. So we have that button right there. It's perfect. And you can either leave it to hug. I would leave it to hug right now. You can set it to fixed, and then that way, this button will be centered in the middle. You can go left or right, but I would leave it to hug the contents right now. And we want that nice little border radius. You can see that it's at 6. So let's set it ours to 6 as well. There we go. And there we go. We have our own primary button. Now let's create like a secondary button like this. So I'm going to delete that one up top by just pressing backspace. And I'm going to go and press Command C or Control C and Control V and bring up a copy here. With this button though, we can do the exact same thing, but let's make it easier on ourselves. How about we do Command or Control D with this primary button? Look at that, we already created a duplicate. So here, instead of having a fill on this button, well, let's first rename it. Let's say secondary. We're not going to have a fill on this button at all, but we're going to have a stroke. So we're going to have a stroke and we're going to make sure the stroke is white. So the code for white is FFF. So we now have our secondary button and it looks pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. And lastly, we have this kind of like text button. So I'm holding Option and dragging to bring that up. You can use Command C, Command V or whatever, but I just like to drag it. Let's take another one, another duplicate over here. So we'll just call this our text. This is our text button. Now you'll notice that it has an icon. How about we actually open up one of our plugins over here? Let's go to Material Icons. Okay, and we're going to search for a right arrow once this bad boy loads. So we got arrow. Let's see what we got here. There we go. We have arrow forward. That looks good. Now I'm just going to make sure that this is linked. So that means that it constrains the proportions. So if I hit 20 pixels here, the width is also going to change to 20 once I click enter. So that's good. I think I have it at 16, so we can use 16 as well. Make sure to change the color to white, the selection colors, and we can drag it in. Okay, so this may look a little weird now because, hey, there's no space between here and there's space on the outside and we just want no space at all. So let's go and select that text layer or the text frame, auto layout frame, and make sure that this spacing is set to 0 and there's no stroke, but we want some space in between. Let's see what we got here. I think we have maybe around 8 pixels or 4 pixels. Yes, we do. So I'm selecting that frame and I'm just going to select 4. And there we go. We have a primary, secondary, and text button all created with a layout, auto layout frames. Awesome. Awesome job, everyone. Okay, everyone. Now is where we're going to put some of the things that we created together in another frame. So we're now going to like nest things and create a beautiful navigation. So we see this nice little navigation here that says, well, it has like the logo, it has padding around it, 40 pixels, it's auto spaced. So that means this is automatically centered. So it's going to automatically space between. You can set that spacing manually, but you don't want to do that. So let's do that right here. I'm going to make a copy of this and we're going to build it together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our logo. So we have a copy of our logo. And we're going to grab a text layer. So let's see, this is 14. Okay. We're going to grab a text layer and we're going to say product and press Command or Control D. We'll make another duplicate. We'll make 4 of them actually. This one's features. And this one's marketplace. Oops. And the last one, we'll call it company. Select them all and you can press Shift and A. And there we go. We have our own frame. This is our auto layout frame. We just call these nav items or something. You can call it whatever you want, whatever floats your boat. And we're going to just adjust the horizontal gap between those items. So we can use 16, 32. I'm going to use something maybe like 40. I think I have 32, but I think 40 looks pretty nice too. So I'm going to use 40 in mine. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this button. This is the button we used here. So we're going to grab a copy of that button. So Command C, Control C, V, and we're going to place it right there. Now, this is where the magic comes into place. We are going to select all. So click and drag and then click Shift A. boom, we have our navigation, but something's up here. Look at that. It's not responsive. If I go and, move that around, that's responsive. Ours, not quite. So we're going to go into this menu while we're selecting our navigation. I'm just going to name it navigation V2 or something. And I'm going to click auto instead of the number that's there. Now it is actually responsive. Now you can go ahead and set padding for it like we've done here. You don't have to. I like to set padding. So I think this is like 40 and 20. Yeah. So, 40 pixels left and right, 20 top and bottom. And we have our very own responsive navigation. Now, if you're following along, great job. I really want to see how far along y'all have gotten, because we are going to move on to the next step of our exercise. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on our next step over here, which is going to be responsive text. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to press F because we're going to start creating this whole frame. Let's do that. Let's press F and then go to your desktop options, and you can pick something like MacBook Air. I think that's a good size just to start with, and we can modify it. And you can rename that to desktop. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the background color to black. Like we're going to be using white. So grab your navigation, so copy and paste it, and bring it into that desktop. So we have the navigation there. And this is why I like to set padding, because it automatically shows you where it's placed best. So I'm just going to leave it there. And the next step is I'm going to add some text. So we're going to add a nice text layer. So I'm going to press T and I'm going to copy the text I see here. So deploy to the cloud with confidence. So that's going to be our big tagline. Press Controller Command A, make it centered. And we're going to bump up the font size. I don't know what font size I have. I think let's see what we have here. We have 64. So let's get it to 64. And I think it's at semi bold. And then we can just like put it right here in the middle for now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some text here, another text layer, and just below. And I'm just going to set a width. So I'm holding down Option for me, but you can set the text any width you want. Next thing you're going to do is come over to your plugins. Use Lorem Ipsum. So search up Lorem Ipsum, and this is going to be your generator. I love Lorem Ipsum. It's my favorite. So select that text layer and maybe give yourself like 3 sentences. And there you go. That's all you're going to need. So I have it at 16 pixels. Let's do that. 16 pixels at 150% line height. And let's see, it's at 75% opacity. It's going to be regular. And you can adjust the letter spacing a bit. So I have it at 2% here. Let's see what I have here. Everything else is fine. This one's at 115. And so what I want to do here is I want to create a layer. So I'm going to create a auto layout layer. So I'm holding Shift while I select these two, or you can just click and drag within the frame. And I'm going to press Shift A. Let's call this text or texty. Text is better. We're actually going to stop here and make sure that these text layers are set to fill. Let's set them to fill. So you can see now this larger layer, the text layer, which is the container that's containing the text, is set to hug. If I set it to fixed and start to modify it, now we have some responsive text. That's because the text layers within are set to fill. If they're set to, say, hug, we're not going to get that type of responsiveness. So set them to fill, so that way it grows and shrinks with your changes to the outer frame. And there you go. We have some responsive text in here. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to work with imagery and gradients. So we can see that the background image in the background over here is essentially this kind of like whole frame, right? Now you can do a couple different things here. You can set the image on the actual frame itself, which is nice if you want to do that. Let's do that actually. So I'm going to open up Unsplash within my plugins, and I'm going to search up like something like abstract. We're just kind of an abstract background. So we can literally pick anything we want. Say we picked something like this. So we have this image. If I go in here, select the image like that, copy it, and go into my desktop, I can paste it. And there we go. We have our image. It's in there. We're not using one of these images. And the next thing I'm going to do is you can add different layers to this image. So if we look over here into our background image layer, we have a fill on it, a couple different fills. Same with this one. We have like one fill on it. So let's add a fill on top. So I'm going to just like grab a color like that, maybe a little bit on the purple side, like that. And you can just add like a little bit of a change here and just opacity. You could also come in here and add another one if you want to work with like a gradient. So say you wanted to have it be dark on the bottom, light on the top. So it kind of like builds up, which is a really nice like way to build a gradient. So you can do that. And so I'm just kind of messing around with this at this point. And it doesn't need to be like perfect or anything. But that's essentially what you want to do if you want to use like gradients and stuff. So I like this image. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. So I have a linear gradient on top of it. Now, that is how you add imagery to your file here, and how you add some fills and gradients. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So we're going to finish this right off. Now, the next step for us is to bring in some of these other assets. So we have this button. I'm going to select both of these, copy them, and paste them over here into my frame. So we have both of these ready to go. If I put them together and press Shift A, then I have them in a frame already. So I'm just going to call this my button frame. So it's my button. And I'm going to leave it 32 pixels between the gap over here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select both the text frame and the button frame and press Shift A again. And this is going to create my content frame, which is going to hold everything. So you can name this anything you want. I'm going to name it content. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stretch it from one end to the next. I'm going to make sure that my constraints are left and right, and it's center. So that means that as I move this, it's just going to be centered to the whole frame. And if you want, you can grab this banner. You could probably create this banner on your own because you've seen me do this now. So it's a text layer with another like kind of like text button in here. So you can create that by yourself with a big border radius. So I'm just going to copy that, come into here, press paste, and put it at the top. Now, at this point, you can now set your spacing properly. So I'm going to set it to about 32. So we have like maybe a next round of funding, get people excited, all that cool stuff. And there you go. Now we can set everything to fill the container. So this one's going to be set to fill container, but I want to come in here because this doesn't look right. Let's set a max width. And so while you're selecting this container, you just go here, come up to the top here where the width is and set add max width. And I'm going to add like a max width of 640 pixels or something. So what that means is while I am, making this smaller, as soon as it hits like 640, it's going to actually, shrink down. Now, the only problem is this outer layer needs like a 40 pixel padding or something. This content auto layout frame, because as we're being responsive, we're worried about that. We're making sure that hero text is not going right to the edge. But there you go. If you followed along and you did this, you are an all-star, because this isn't necessarily the easiest, but you now know how to create navigation, responsive auto layout buttons, responsive text, and a whole responsive layout. Great job, everyone. Hey, everyone, and welcome back. We have an assignment. So let's jump right in. Remember, I want you to create a responsive landing page. If you weren't following along, now's the time to do it. Jump into Figma to create some other elements like a logo, buttons, and navigation. Use auto layout to create a responsive layout within that landing page. And remember, don't feel bad if you didn't do it when I was doing it. Lots of people learn differently, and that's why our courses are so great. So you can always go at your own pace. Remember to share your work with us on Discord. And if you haven't already, join our private Discord, because this is one of the best resources from ZTM. We have other students, mentors, and even instructors like myself that are always willing to help if you have a question, just want to share your work, or want to have a great discussion. Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm currently in my Introduction to Smart Animate resource. So this is the main resource that we're going to use for these lectures today. We have a bunch of things. If you don't have a copy of it, you're just going to want to come in here and duplicate it to your drafts. You should see an option there instead of trying to ask to edit it or anything. Don't do that. Remember to click this drop down, go to duplicate this to drafts, because you're going to need this to build what we are building. So we have 3 pages here. We have the cover and we have our assets. So you'll see all these assets are for the prototypes that we're going to be piecing together. We have parallax assets, we have message assets, we have form elements, and we even have like an interactive button as an example. Over here in this page called prototypes, this is where all the magic is going to happen. We are going to be learning some of the introductory basics of Smart Animate. We'll learn all the properties that you can use within Smart Animate, how you can combine them, and we'll use some of those properties to build some existing prototypes we have here. We're going to recreate parallax, new messages. We'll create an overlay with a tooltip and we'll even create an interactive button of our own. You won't need any plugins, but like I said, navigate to the assets to grab some of these assets because you'll need those to follow along with some of these prototypes. So let's jump right in. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on Smart Animate. This is the introduction to Smart Animate. So if you have this file, just come over here and you're going to want to duplicate this to your drafts because you won't be able to edit it unless you do that. So let's jump right in. As you can see, I have a bunch of assets in here, but we're going to actually jump right into Smart Animate over here. I'm going to click the prototype little link over here in the top right. And you can see there's a bunch of flows. So we're going to focus on these examples over here in the prototypes page. So Smart Animate has multiple properties that you can basically work with. Those properties are scale. So when something goes from small to large, large to small. There's also position. And essentially that is just the movement of one place to the next. So in this case, we have a toggle. There's opacity. So that can mean the opacity of this ball is now going from 100 to 0. And we have rotation. So literally rotating objects. So that means, clicking an object, spinning it around. And the last one is fill or color. So you can see the colors have changed from this screen to the next. These are all connected in a very simple way, and it's more so of a demonstration. You can also try and create your own. And all I've done is I've clicked on here, dragged over a little arrow to the next frame, and done the same over here. So, just connecting it over. And I'm just going to back out of that, but this is all I've done here, and it's based off of a click. So let's take a look. I'm going to press play, and we should be able to see on the left-hand side all the prototypes we have. So I'm just going to adjust this, and we're just going to go through all the different prototypes. So let's see. With scale, as you can see, it gets larger and smaller. With position, we see the position change. And with this one, we're not just doing position, like you can use different properties here. I have also fill. You can see the colors have changed as well. So you can mix and match. You can do all of them at once as well. So I have opacity on this one. You can tell the opacity changes. Rotation. And we have fill. And fill is essentially the color. Now, if I go back to this tab, you can see it's really easy to manipulate these. And I think the only thing with Smart Animate is you need to keep in mind that the layers need to be the same name. So in this case, this little ellipse over here, the circle, is named scale. And this one over here is named scale as well. If we go to the position, we have like the toggle. So we have a fill and the toggle switch. And over here, it's named the exact same thing, toggle and fill. So I just want you to keep in mind that when you are creating a smart animation, you are going to keep those layers that you want to smart animate the same. So that way they actually move around or change color or change size or rotate, anything. And those are the properties that you can animate in Smart Animate. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We just went over some of the basics about the properties you can animate within Smart Animate, but I want to show you some of the little more bigger details or smaller details that you'll find when actually prototyping. So if I were to, take this line over here, and I'm just going to delete it by pressing backspace. So it's gone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click it again and drag it to this frame. So couple different things in this panel. You'll notice you can set the interaction. You can do it by key, by hovering, by pressing, mouse enter, mouse leave, so many different things. We're going to keep this one very simple. So we're just going to use on click. We're going to navigate to. You can do a bunch of different things here too. We're not going to get into some of the more complex things like variables or creating conditional clicks and all that. But I do want to get into just basics, like whether we're swapping something or navigating to something. So we're just going to navigate to this. We're going to navigate to this page. It's already linked for us. Now, instead of clicking instant, we're going to go navigate to Smart Animate. And here is where we can actually create some pretty interesting stuff. So, you can easily create like that ease and out animation that you see. Let's just take a look quickly. So we're working with the scale prototype right now. So this is what it looks like. Pretty basic. It's basically easing out at 300 milliseconds, but you can do so much more. Say you want to do ease in and out back, and maybe you want to set it to 1,000 milliseconds. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm just going to press R to restart this prototype. So that was pretty cool. It kind of goes smaller and gets larger and then shrinks back. So that's kind of more like a ball animation. But you can take this a bit further and use some of these types of animations. So if you want it to be gentle, it'll automatically just go to 800 milliseconds here. So you can see that gentle is a little more natural than the ease in, ease out. See that gentle movement right there. Now let's take a look at what that looks like when we have something like this, maybe bouncy. So, boom. That was quite the pop. So as you can see, you can definitely create a bunch of different types of animations. You can even, this is slow, you can even set your own custom one where you'll basically set the spring. So you can adjust how long it's going to be by going up and down. So this one's going to be like that. You can adjust how bouncy it's going to be. This is going to be super bouncy. Like that. You see how bouncy it is? In the explanation below, you can see that right here. That's kind of stiff. You can see the stiffness, the damping, and the mass. So just by doing this, it adjusts those accordingly. So let's have something with a little bit of bounce. Okay, I think that's good for our custom spring. So that's pretty awesome. And basically, we're going to be using that all throughout the course. We're going to be using just basic smart animations. We're not going to get too crazy because you don't need to get too crazy to create something that looks beautiful and is a great interaction. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on some quick parallax effects, and I'll show you how to do that really easily. So if you come over here into the assets page, we're going to have all the assets for all the prototypes we're going to create, but we're going to work with the parallax one. So I'm just going to click on this frame right here. I'm just going to copy it. You can use Command C, Control C. So it's copied. And we're going to go over to our prototypes. So as you can see, it's already here. I'm going to paste it beside because I'll show you how I created it and you can work with me. So you should have a copy there. What we're going to do is we're going to actually go into our prototype. I have the tab open, but you could just click play. And you're going to navigate to this item on the side here called parallax. And wow, that's quite beautiful. So if you press R, you can see that animation again. And essentially, we are seeing multiple components or elements on this page fade in nicely. Let's take a look at the actual linked prototype. You'll notice that if I click on design, you can see that we have elements over here that are 0% opacity. So if I click 100, I can see that, it is essentially over here, it is essentially just kind of lowered. Even the buttons over here on this side are a little bit lower as well. Let's see if we can locate the nav. The nav as well is set to 0. So we can set that to 100, just so you can see. And the background image, that is over here. And it is set to, let's take a look. We have no image showing through. So the image is turned off. So as you can tell, all that work goes into this. Now we can essentially recreate that on our end. So I'm just going to go back, Control Z, Command Z, just so we can see. We are going to create two versions of this. So I'm going to press Control D or Command D, depending on if you're in Windows or Mac. And all I'm going to do is the exact same thing. I'm going to move this down. I'm holding Shift while I'm moving it so it doesn't really move. But Shift down. And essentially, when you're using a parallax effect, you're just using the Smart Animate properties of, position. You can use like things like fill and color. That's where we're kind of doing opacity. I'm taking this one as well. And I'm just going to click down on my pad on my arrows and holding Shift. I can move in larger increments. And I'm going to set this whole frame main headline to 0%. So that's down there. Over here, I'm going to hold down Shift and drag this down just a little bit. The further you drag it down, the more movement you're going to see. So we don't want it to be super intense, but just nice enough. Now the last thing we need to do is just turn off this background image. So let's take a look at some of the finer things. I mentioned that in this course, we are going to be doing stuff like creating beautiful animations like you saw here pretty nicely and quickly. It's super easy. So we have an after delay. So it's just going to happen after 800 milliseconds. It's going to be a slow, smart animation. It's going to last about 1500 milliseconds. So let's see. We can also make this as nice as we want. Like we can, try to do something different if we want. Here's 1500. Let's see if we can match it. And after delay, maybe we, instead of 800 milliseconds, maybe do something like 1000. And last thing is we need to click on this frame and create the flow starting point. And I'm just going to call it our parallax and press enter. And so now it's named as such. Let's take a look at our prototypes, and it should be at the very bottom. So our parallax, and that's looking pretty snazzy. Let's take a look again because that happened quickly. I'm going to press R. And there you go. That's a simple parallax effect where you have your items coming in at different speeds out from kind of like this very low opacity, this dark background, and the image as well. Let's take a look at what it looks like in comparison to the original. And we did that in, 4 or 5 minutes. That was great, honestly. See how easy it is to create your own quick parallax effect. This is great for just talking to engineering about how you maybe envision this kind of working, or if you know how to code, or if you're using like a different website builder, you can basically mock these up quickly just to kind of get that buy-in before you go in there and do it yourself or hand it off. Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be working on a quick little animation, and this is going to be how we're going to create like this new message type interaction. So this micro interaction where something comes in, you get a new message, you can see that kind of preview over here on the cover page. We're actually going to go into our assets, and we're going to grab this whole section. So I gave you a couple of different like elements here you can play with, but we're going to grab this whole thing. I'm going to just press Command C, or you can use Control C, move over to my prototypes, and I'm going to just paste it over here beside our prototype. We're just going to leave it there. Let's take a look. So this seems like it's the original, yes. And if I click prototype, yeah, it's going to start on this one here. And essentially what happens is we have the messages, and then this message comes in and it's like red, and then it just kind of like dissipates and you have this like little icon. Let's take a look at what that looks like. We'll wait for our prototype. And here we go. We have our new message. So I'm going to press R to restart that. So seems like an after delay comes in, and then another after delay, which sets up this screen. So it's 3 screens in total. Let's do it again. This is the second screen. And so we got a nice little bouncy animation that, you know, really notifies the user that something's happened. And then you keep this kind of visual little bubble over here. Okay, so let's actually jump in and do something like that. So I'm going to actually create 3 screens in a second. This will be our last screen. So we can actually use Control D or Command D. So I have 3 screens. This one's going to be our last one. Over here, what we can do is we are just going to delete that because it's going to be just red, the background. So we can select this text row, and I'm actually going to select all of them, and I'm going to name them something different. I'm going to call this new text because that's the one thing I'm animating here too. So I'm going to select a new text over here, which is the top one, and I'm just going to change the color. So I'm going to, you know, click the picker, zoom in here. And so the background is going to be red, but not that red. Maybe we'll do something like light, like that. So we have this kind of like red notification. And I'm actually going to take this notification. I'm going to copy it. So I'm pressing Command C or Control C. And I'm going to select the text row, the text frame over here, which is the same exact one named text over here. So I'm going to select it and paste it and move it to the top using my arrow keys. I can delete this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, right now, I'm going to fix the height. Right now it's set to hug. It's an auto layout container, so it'll always grow with the content within, as you can see. But I'm going to actually fix it so that way we're only showing the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different messages. So I'm going to just fix it like that. Yeah, maybe like that. And then I'm going to set the auto layout container to a line at the bottom. And we can clip this content. I think we can clip this content as well. So it's set to hug. So what's going to happen is it's going to grow and it's going to bounce. So let's take a look. We're going to look at our prototype. And this is set to after delay, you'll see. So after 1,000 milliseconds, this custom spring, and then after that settles, after 200 milliseconds, then it just eases out nicely. So let's take a look if we can recreate something similar. We're going to call this, I'm just going to name it our message. So I'm going to just drag a little interaction piece there. Oops. I'm going to delete that because in order to create an after delay interaction, you need to select the outside frame, the most outer frame. So after, let's do 1500 milliseconds, we'll do a custom spring as well. Drag this little ball. It's going to last maybe something like that. So let's see what that looks like. Nice. And then I'm going to select the outer frame, drag, make it after delay again, but this time we're just going to keep it really short. So it's going to fade out. Only 300 milliseconds, I think, is what we need here. And it's going to start maybe 500 milliseconds after this comes in. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to click into my prototypes and go to the very bottom, and we'll see our message here. Oh, that looks beautiful. And there you go. You can see what that looks like in comparison. We've got a little more bounce on this one, but our version, if you followed exactly how I created it, you got a little subtle bounce. And there you go. That's how you can use like properties like, we don't actually have opacity on this one. We have fill and we have just scale. So we're just fixing the position of this larger text container over here. And then we have opacity. We have this coming in, which is kind of acting like opacity. We're just kind of dissolving it in because it's not in the frame before, this frame in particular. So it's just kind of dissolving. So it's kind of like acting like opacity. And there you go. That's how you create your own new message interaction. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be creating another type of smart animation. We're going to be focusing on how to create overlays within our frames. So let's get into it. So over here, I have our form elements, and we can copy this all over. So I'm going to press Command C or Control C while I'm selecting all of them. So you can just click and drag, and I'm going to go into my prototypes. And I'm just going to paste them right here, and we'll get into this in a second. Sometimes while you're designing, you have a beautiful design, but sometimes you need things to help users or guide them. In this case, we have a little tooltip that we're going to create. And what we're going to do is, while hovering over an item, you will get this kind of tooltip. And essentially, you can realistically create this in one frame. You don't need to create this hover effect that I'm creating over here. It gets a little darker on the eye because this is just showing the user what happens when you click on this little icon. It just toggles the visibility of the password. Let's get into what that looks like. Okay, whoops. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this, and I'm going to press Shift A. That's going to create an auto layout frame for me. And I'm just going to call this form. Now, if I go into my design tab, I can set up all the auto layout things that I like. So I'm just going to set 80 padding on all sides, set a fill to white, and I think 24 pixels is fine in terms of the spacing. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a duplicate of this screen. So I'm going to press Command D or Control D. And I'm going to select this little eye. So you can do this by creating like interactive components, and we'll get into that in later lessons on how to do it. But I'm going to show you how to do it without an interactive component. It's a lot more work, to be honest, because you have to show what the hover state looks like. But I'll show you what that looks like, because you can just essentially, create the interaction just by using one link. But I'm going to show you how to do it in 2 links. So over here, we're just going to use the interaction while hovering. And we're going to keep it simple, just 300 milliseconds, and ease out. And over here, I'm going to go to the tooltip overlay. And I'm going to say, while hovering on this one now, I am going to not navigate to, but open an overlay. And here I have some options. We're just going to dissolve it so it comes in quickly. And we can make this short so it happens really quickly. And you can set where it shows up, but I'm going to set it to manual. So we can set it to something like this. We don't need to worry about adding a background because it's not like a modal. And we don't need to like reset the scroll position or anything like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little eye and I'm going to go back. So essentially what it's going to be, and actually, you know what? We don't even need to do that. Let's just leave it like this for now. But the one thing we do need to do is go into our design and make sure we have this little eye selected and maybe change it to 50% instead of 25%. And you can see it gets darker. So this one is called tooltip. So we'll just call this form, this flow, we're going to call it our tooltip. And we're going to press play. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. This tooltip over here. So we have that hover, and while you're hovering, it stays. Ours should be very similar. I have it popping up on the top, whereas in this version, we have it popping on at the bottom. We can adjust the viewing for this, but there you go. Now I can show you very quickly. So if I take this right here and do something like this, make a different version. And so now when I'm hovering, there you go. It's going to still go to this overlay. We can, push it on top again. We're not going to worry about the hover like darkening, which is a nice little bit of extra. So we just change this to 150. And we call this one, I'm just going to call it V2, like our version 2. Sometimes when I create a bunch of prototypes, I have like V1, V2, V3, V3.1, and so on. So just a habit, V2 over here. We can easily just see that. And if you have an interactive like component, this component, you can have like a toggle component or like a icon component that essentially when on hover, it always goes darker or goes lighter or whatever. But that little component can work with like other things like tooltips easily without having to make more than one screen. So it'll always look like that. But I'll show you that in later lessons. And that's how you create a simple overlay. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on interactive components because you'll need to understand what they mean before you even get into this next lesson. So I'm going to go into my assets over here because I'm still in my introduction to Smart Animate file. So as you can see at the bottom here, we have an interactive button. And what does that mean? Well, it essentially means that this button has multiple states and we capture those states within like different variants and components like that. But not only that, if I click prototype, you can see that there's a lot of prototyping going on here. Let me show you how to create a very simple interactive button. So I'm just going to move to the side over here. And if you want, you can actually just take a copy. So I'm going to copy this, Command C, and I'm going to press Command V over here. And I'm going to right click on this. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to detach the instant by right clicking. And we don't need anything like this, so we can remove it. If I go to my design, you can see that's a nice little button. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a component. So here we go. But then I'm going to go to my right here, go to properties, go to variant, and there we go. We have a variant set up here. What I like to do at this point is I like to like fill it with white. I'll turn it into an auto layout frame just by doing that. Set it to something like 20. I just set it back to 10. And then it's just every new variant's going to kind of go down nicely like that and stack. So if we click on this entire thing, this entire component, we can come over here and go to the properties panel. And we are just going to call this property state. So we have our default state. And, we can make it a different color. Like we can do something like a blue like that. And so if I press Command D or Control D, we'll make a new copy. And we can call this our hover state. So we're going to make a simple one, just default to hover. And this is going to be really helpful for situations like this. I'm going to click my prototypes where you want to do some sort of like hover to display the tooltip overlay, but you don't want to create two frames to do it. This solves the issue of just having the component in that one frame. So if I navigate back to my assets, what I'm going to do here is, we can do like a whole state change. Like that. We're going to just switch it to green. Doesn't matter. And so this one's called hover. This one's called default. And all we're going to do is click prototype, click on the default version, and drag a little arrow down to the hover. And all we're going to do is while hovering, and we'll keep it simple. We'll maybe do like 300 milliseconds and keep it to smart animate. And there you go. That's all we are going to do. I'm going to press F now. And I'm going to create a nice big frame. And we'll call this one like form. So if you want, you can bring this nice little button in here. And you can also bring in, I don't know, some of these components that we have on the side here. Paste them in there. And if you want to just automatically make this beautiful, just click auto layout. And you can do something like maybe 24 pixels. Oops. And then we could do 80 pixel padding, 80 pixel padding. Oops. Here, click on the form. There we go. 80 and 80. And so we have 80 and 80 over here. And then we are just going to go to prototype and make sure we have a flow starting point while we're clicking here. So we'll just call this form. And we can start to see what this looks like. Here we go. So you can see that we have this nice little interactive form. Well, not quite interactive, but if I hover over this, you can see that without even having more than one frame, we have just this interactive button. Now, if we use this component everywhere, like we already know how important components in general are. Now, interactive components change the game. We have the ability to just embed this in any frame, and anytime you bring up a prototype where that frame is, it's gonna use that interactive prototype without needing to create the frame over and over again. You can even see that this one over here, I believe, is also a smart interactive component using Smart Animate. So I'll show you how to create different stuff like this where we have checkboxes or other elements, like more complex interactive buttons. So you can see we just have a hover animation. This is just based off of click, like a turning off and on. And there you go. That's how you create interactive components. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be creating an interactive component for our form, but we're going to get a little bit more involved with this now. So let's get into it. We're going to go into our assets so we can see our interactive button over here. And we can see that it has like a hover state, and some things are happening here where it's getting darker, and it's also moving, like the little icon's moving. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm just going to press F, and I'm going to start creating a frame. I'm just going to call this form. I'm going to leave that there for now, and I'm going to navigate to the prototype section because we'll see what that looks like within the interactive button over here. So I'm going to press play. Let's wait for that prototype to show up. And here it is at the bottom. So as we saw in prior lessons, that we can make a pretty simple interactive button. But what happens if we just, up the difficulty a bit, put a little bit more care into that micro interaction. So you see, you get a slight movement with the little arrow over here, and you got color change, and then a click. And it moves over a nice bouncy little animation. Let's see how we can do that ourselves. So I'm going to go and navigate back to my assets, and I'm going to make a copy over here. So I'm going to drag a copy out. I'm holding Option. You can Command C, Control C, and just paste it into your frame. But I'm going to right click and go and detach that instance. Okie doke. Let's see how we can go about creating something like this. So as you can tell, these are all smart animate buttons. So if I create another version, well, first, let's actually create a component. We'll create that component, create a new property, a new variant. So set up this border box. I like to make auto layout frames for these, fill to white. Now I'm going to click on the entire area, just name it state. This is our default state. We'll have our hover. So this is our hover. And so what's going to happen is the first thing I'm going to change is color. So I'm going to, make it deeper. That orange, that purple, definitely not orange. And I'm going to bring this in a bit. So we can do a couple things here. We can use padding if we wanted to. Over here, I essentially just did the padding as well. So kept it really simple. Like I added 10 pixels. So I added 2 and I removed 2. So you can also do this with like a non-auto layout button. So quick little movement there. And then I'm going to create another version. So we can start linking this together. So while hovering, so we'll keep it at, maybe we'll do 200 milliseconds, keep it quick. And actually, yeah, so let's do that. And then we'll create another one. Over here, we're going to call this state pressed. And this one's going to be a deeper purple. Let's make it really dark. And we are going to offset this further. So we'll do something like maybe 8 pixels. And this should be 12 or 14. I think it's 14. Yeah. Oops. There we go. Oh, I gotta add a little bit more, maybe 16. So you see it kind of goes further to the edge. And so when I click on this one, we're gonna get a little bit bounce, or we can do a custom spring since we know how to do that. Let's bring it out. That's nice. So we'll do that simple spring. And then after that's complete, we'll navigate all the way to the back here. So after delay, maybe about 500 milliseconds, we'll just ease out We don't need to do a custom spring. Just ease out nicely. Maybe it's at 200. So let's see. I'm going to drag a copy, Command C or Command V. We could just leave it there and click our form frame over here, flow starting point, just call this our V1, whatever you'd like to call it, and go to round 1, press play. So let's see how this pans out. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but we have it over here, our V1. So if I hover, we get that nice change. If I click, ooh, that got really dark. So we can make some modifications here. So first of all, I don't like how dark it got. Can change that. Ooh, so I'm going a little too far off the deep end there. Little lighter. And I thought that animation was way too slow. Let's take a look at what animation I used here. So when I clicked, I did 800 and I just did the bouncy. Okay, so let's see what it looks like if we just use bouncy. Okay, let's get to it. That's pretty nice. And there you go. Looks nice. And that's how you create an interactive button. Now, all we have to do here is put this over here. We can go into our design, let's call it an auto layout, set it to 80, set it to 80, maybe 24 gap in between, and grab some of these form elements. I'm holding shift while I'm selecting, Control C and Control V or Command V. And now they're in our little form. And you can pair this with the overlay if you want. So if I want to grab this overlay, I can just drag a variation. I'm holding Option while I do that. And you can do something like this. While hovering, we are going to open overlay. It's going to be a dissolve. It's going to be like 300 milliseconds. It's not going to be bouncy. It's going to just ease out, or maybe 200. Make it nice and quick. Trying to drag this out of the way. And there you go, with like an interactive button. And press R. Oops. I may need to rerun this. Try it one more time. Sometimes there's little bugs like that. So we have our button. And we even have this overlay. So obviously you don't need to use the exact same thing I did to do this. Like maybe 500 is too much. Maybe it's only 200 milliseconds until it goes back. And there you go. We have multiple interactive components on this page, and we have a nice little overlay for a tooltip. And that's how you create a beautiful interactive button, and you pair it with some other types of things like overlays and other interactive components. Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you are following along with me, we are going to be building some pretty cool things today. Anything from interactive icons all the way to prototypes. So you need to get this resource. You should have a link to it, the Photo Inspiration Application resource. Don't request to edit it. Come into this menu and go to duplicate the file or duplicate it to your drafts. So that's the best way to get this one. Next thing you're going to do is you have this beautiful cover photo. You have all your assets here where you have some beautiful interactive components that we're going to recreate. You have some screens here that we're going to use. These are going to be your main screens, and you're going to have some beautiful prototypes over here. So that way you can reference what we're creating. We're going to recreate all these prototypes: category transitions, simple micro interactions, screen transitions, and we're going to do some dragging. Now you're going to need a couple of different plugins. Let me show you. You're going to need the material design icons plugin. This one's really great for grabbing icons. We're going to create some interactive components with them. If you don't like those icons, there's so many plugins out there. Another great one is called Streamline. Let's take a look. So Streamline icons, illustrations. You can get some beautiful icons for free over here. So definitely use that for icons if you need to. The last one we are going to be using is the Unsplash plugin. Now, we may not be using it through some of the lectures, but this is what I use to create some beautiful screens here. You know, you can find some beautiful pictures of whatever, animals, nature. You do a lot of great stuff over here and find a bunch of beautiful imagery. So you can easily use a plugin like that to help fill out the rest of this app. And at the end of this project, you're going to have an assignment. So let's jump right in because there's so much to learn. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on some cool prototypes. Let's jump right in. The assets page over here, and we have 3 different home screens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all 3. I'm going to hold shift while I select all the frames here, name home. I'm going to copy them. So Command C or Control C. I'm going to go over to my prototypes tab. Now I'm going to press Command V or Control V and bring them over side by side. So let's analyze this prototype here, because what we're going to recreate is something pretty amazing. I'm going to press play, and we're going to do some very simple category transitions. These are kind of like page transitions. So what we're going to do here is we can just switch it from screen to screen. So we can, if you click nature, you know, you'll get a nice fade in effect, or architecture, you'll get that nice fade in effect of the images. And maybe if I drag back, so it's going to work with drag as well, but the images are going to stay the same in the same position. Essentially, it's pretty easy to do that. We have it set up over here. Let's take a look at our layers. So we're going to keep these layers all the same. We're going to call them heading. We can see that they're the same over here in this page as well. In this frame, same thing. The only thing that's going to change is the sub navigation. It's going to shift. So if we click into here, we can see, if I click on my design tab, you can see that they're all named by their actual name. And the nav items are just moving from left to right. I'm using my arrow keys. It's really, really easy. So we have them set up as such. So essentially what's happening here is the color change. All we need to do is go into our prototype tab. And so nature, if I click over here, I'm just going to make sure, yeah, it's set to home. We're going to click Smart Enemy, and it's going to be 300 milliseconds. And if I click Architecture, bring it over here, same thing, 300 milliseconds is fine for now. Now, let's see how that works. We could just call this our V1. We go back into our prototypes. We'll see V1's at the bottom there. So we can already see. Beautiful. If I press R to restart it, let's see if it goes to architecture. You see how that slides nicely? That's what we're looking for. So now we're just going to do our due diligence over here, and we're going to, link them accordingly. So now we have architecture linking here. So if we go back to our prototype, now there's no real way to get back aside from swiping. So let's see how we can do this. So if we take a look at all of our rectangles in here, they're all named the same. So this is rectangle 13 in the middle. This is rectangle 13 as well. All of them are the same, and that's why you get that nice kind of dissolve from that fill. So it's that Smart Animate property that we're just changing. Okay, so I'm going to take the gallery frame inside here that houses all the gallery items, and I'm going to drag it to the home frame over here. And all I'm going to do is, instead of Smart Animate, I'm going to use Move In. So that's going to slide in from the left, and not on click, but on drag. So we're going to animate all the matching layers. So anything that is matching is going to animate nicely. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Select the gallery frame. And on drag, I'm going to move in from that side. And I can select that gallery frame and use it to drag in the other direction as well. But we're moving in this direction, so I'm pulling it in. And then I'm going to select this last one, this gallery frame on this side, and do the same thing if I want to navigate back to here. But I gotta make sure they click on drag. Now we can test it out. So we're on the architecture tab. We're just gonna press R to restart. Let's see. Beautiful. So if I drag, I'm getting that nice pull. I can go in all directions. And I have some clicking. So that's how you can create some pretty interesting dragging smart animations. And also just on-click interactions just to get those transitions going from category to category, or in this state, this kind of like screen transition as well. You are kind of just navigating these images, and you could hypothetically move these blocks around or something like that, or have a different name for each of the gallery images. So it could be something like this. We can call this gallery 1. This one could be gallery 2. And this one could be gallery 3. And now you have this kind of like overlay. But if you don't want that overlay, you can, instead of move in, we can choose something like push. So if I select all of these and change move in to push, you can keep the direction the exact same way. Let's do that. We're almost done here. Here we go. So that's pretty nice. And then you can switch up the different positions of the images if you wanted to. We got some pretty interesting little interaction going there now. And that's how you can create some pretty nice category transitions. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to get into creating some very simple micro interactions. So let's do that. Let's create some interactive components, and we're going to make some like nice little icon buttons. So we are in our photo inspiration application resource. If you come over to the assets, we can see that we have this nice little icon over here. We have like a chevron left icon, and we have just like a love icon. So really simple stuff. If you go into your prototypes page and click play, we can come up over here to our simple micro interactions, and we see this beautiful page over here. We see the icons at the top, and all that we're going to do here is, if you click on it, it kind of has like a pressed click state. So that's what's going to happen when you click it on like mobile. So you can see that's been interacted with. It's really beautiful. Let's go back. We are going to create those exact same icons. And let me show you how. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your plugins, your right click, and you can either do that or command and control and back for / and you can open up your command menu, or you can come over here and go into your plugins. I'm going to pick one, and we can use like material plugins, material design icons. And we're going to look for 2 different types of icons. So we're going to select 24 by 24. I think that's what I have here. Oh, I have at 32, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to click arrow. So we're going to pick this left one. And we're going to look for heart. Or maybe it's love. Love, like, Okay, we're gonna have to go searching for it. I don't know why it's not named heart. There it is. Oh, it's favorite. Okay, that's fine. We're gonna grab both the outline version and the filled version. And we're gonna scan close. Okay, so we have our icons. We can call this one left chevron. That's the proper name for this type of arrow. And we'll just select both of them and call it love. Now, let's work on the chevron first. We're going to select this and just create 999 on the border radius. So it's going to be circular. And we're going to make sure that the color in the inside is going to be white so you can see it beautifully. I think we have it's set to 32 pixels. 32 by 32. Perfect. And we'll take this vector image in the background that you can't really see, and we'll call this one background. And this, we can maybe extend it outward and make it a circle as well. Perfect. So you can't really see anything right now. So we'll create this component. Go to Properties, Variant, Auto Layout. We'll do 20. And we'll do state for the property name. So this is our default state. If we make a duplicate, Command D or Control D, we'll call this one clicked or pressed. And all we're doing here is going inside, going to the background, and we'll give it a little bit of a fill. So it'll be maybe 000 with 10% or something. Let's see what I made it on here. So this one's 20%. So we can do 20% as well, just to make sure that, you can see it. And so can't really see it with that background, but make it gray. There we go. And we can prototype this. So when I click, it's going to go to that one, and it's going to be quick, 100 milliseconds. Ease out, that's fine. Over here, it's going to go back. So after delay, maybe 50 milliseconds, it's going to go back the other way. So now we can test it out. If I press F and make a frame, let's make this make it this color, and we'll drag a copy. So I'm holding Option while I do that. So you can drag a copy here, right in the middle. We'll go to our prototype, flow starting point, just call it flow 1. Let's see what happens here. I click play. Okay, so there's our icon. So that's a nice little interaction. So there you go. That's how you create a quick icon interaction. Let's do the same for the love icon. So we can come here, create a copy of this. I'm Option and dragging. We'll just call this love. And we'll just swap it out. So we'll do, this one's going to need multiple properties. So we do design, and we'll create a property called is loved, and we'll call it false. So when it's not loved, it is going to be essentially empty. And when it's loved, it's going to be filled. 32 by 32. I gotta make sure these are 32 by 32. Perfect. So I'm going to drag the vector on the inside over there. We can delete that one. and delete that one. We can actually make these a little smaller, maybe. Perfect. Okay. And we're just going to basically make them white. So like I said, we're not going to use auto layout anymore. But like I said, these are not loved. And so these ones are going to be loved. So true. And essentially just going to bring this in. This one's 20 pixels. Okay, just going to drop that in there. Make sure it's centered in there. Just do the exact same thing on this one. Beautiful. We can delete this and we can basically make these like red. Okay. So the prototype is as such. So when you click on this, we're going to actually have to cross them up. So when you click on this one, you want to go to being like in that loved state. And then the after delay will go back to here. And when you click on this one, instead of going to that love state, you're going to go to the empty state. So let's see what this looks like beside our another icon over here. So it's in that love state, and there we go. Beautiful. And there you go. That's how you create some interactive icons. Hey everyone, if you're following along with our very last lecture about how to create some interactive icons, you'll have something very similar to what we have over here, which is essentially just a, love icon and a left chevron. And what we're going to do next is we're going to put those inside an actual frame so you can see them working. So let's go to our prototype page over here, and I'm going to click prototype, and I'm going to click the play button. And if we go to our simple micro interactions one, we'll see that we have one over here. So you're able to maybe love an image or like an image, add it to your favorites, and go back and navigate away from this page. So that's how that works. It's looking good. I want to show you how you can do the exact same thing and throw that in there. So we're going to go to our assets page. We can click our design tab over here. And I do believe I have one ready. So all we're going to do is, create a copy. You can drag one over. And I have this nice little kind of controls panel, and you don't have to use it. I like to use different frames and stuff like that. So I'm going to drag them in here. We have our copies in here. These are our icons that we created together, and I'm going to hold them together and press Shift A. It's going to put them in a frame, and we could just call this header, or you can call it controls. Doesn't really matter. And we can put this at the top. Let's call it controls. And we can, drag it all the way out. We can give it maybe some padding on the side, 24 pixels. We won't need that on the top. And instead of the spacing like that, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and click auto. So it's going to space it right across. And there you go. If we click play, or if we go to our prototype tab, flow starting point, this one's just called flow 2, we'll be able to click play and see it already there, looking beautiful. Boom. And there you go. That's such an easy way to create your very own micro interactions, and then take those interactive components and throw them into your prototype so you can see what it looks like while you're designing. Also, while you're just showing off like a page, it's a nice little kind of added extra like tidbit that brings those designs to life. Oh, that looks great. There you go. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be creating some pretty cool prototypes for screen transitions. So let's jump right in. So if I go into my assets tab, I have this beautiful image over here. I'm going to grab this image and I'm going to press shift and I'm going to grab this one too. These frames are going to be the ones that we're going to use today. I'm going to command or control C, come into my prototypes, and I'm going to come over here and paste them in. And I'm just going to drag them side by side because these are the two we're going to use. Now, this is essentially the prototype. It looks really simple, but it's really beautiful, I promise. We're just going to press play and come right in here. I'm going to go all the way down to screen transition. So what I want to show you is how do you create like some sort of masking effect where you click on a image and it pops up as like the main screen, and we have some like parallax built in. So if I click back, beautiful. So I'm going to show you how we're going to create the exact same thing. So we can just analyze this really quickly. It's essentially one click. See, very simple, smart animation. And then from this page, it's an after delay. So after like 1 millisecond, it immediately just continues onward. And then going backward, we have a little gentle bounce. That's why you get this kind of like little bouncy effect. Very gentle. Okay. I want you also to take note of two things here. We're staggering a lot of the content and we're naming the content the same. So these rectangles or these squares all have a numbered name except this one we call the main image. Over here, it's the exact same thing. We have the gallery. It's kind of wrapped in a gallery tab and it's called main image. So we're keeping even the layers the same. So the way it's structured is as it goes home, body, which is this container, and within body there's gallery. Let's see over here. We have body, gallery, main image, and this content over here is staggered as well. It's hidden, if we go to our design tab, under 0% opacity. That's why we're getting that same parallax effect. Same with the controls. The controls are down here and hidden as well. So let's try and recreate the same thing. So we can just call this transition. We're going to make another duplicate over here. This one over here, we'll just rename it, all right. Call it our main image. And this one's already called main image, so perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our controls and hold shift and bring them down and then set the pass through to 0. I'm going to take these, bring them down. I actually turn the body. I'm going to turn off the auto layout here so I can drag within. Just bring it down and set the pass through to 0%. And that should be good. That's literally all you have to do here. And I think the one last thing is instead of having this kind of linear gradient that's happening, we're just going to turn that off. There we go. Let's go to a prototype tab. So when we click here, we are going to just animate easy 300 milliseconds. Perfect. And then on this transition frame, we're going to do an after delay. And we're going to keep everything the same. From here, now we can navigate backwards. And we could just use the simple, gentle bounce that we have here for the animation. And lastly, let's set a flow starting point. We can leave it at flow 1 so we can see what it looks like. So here's our flow 1. I'm going to press R, just make sure everything's reset. Well, let's see it again. Okay, so it's okay. I think that we have some issues just with how quick it is. Let's take a look. So everything looks fine. This looks fine. This looks fine as well. I think the only thing is we compare the two. Beautiful. Let's see ours. Beautiful. So we're pretty close, I would say. We just need to make some simple changes. We can leave it as such. Make sure gallery is on top of content. And over here, we're just going to go to body. We're going to go to body. Make sure that says right. Looks beautiful. I think the last thing I'm going to do is make sure, I think maybe that linear gradient on the top is having an issue. So we're just going to remove it. That looks a little bit better. And there you go. You can easily create a very simple transition, just like how I just created, that matches what we have here. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be learning about how to create some nice scrolling transitions. We're going to first work on the horizontal scroll, just a very simple one. So you can come into your assets page here, you can grab an image, we can just, grab a copy and paste it, whatever you need to do. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select, and we have a vertical overflow going. Now, if we go into our section here, it's the name section, and go into our photos, all we're going to do here is we are going to have horizontal scrolling. And we're just going to take this and do that. So it's matched to the inside. You can hit fill container, and there you go. What we're going to do next is go select our image, click prototype. We're going to call it flow 1. We'll click play. So this is the easiest way. If you have content that's like horizontal and you wanted to just do a simple horizontal scroll, as long as those content pieces are hanging over the edge of the container, or the frame, you can easily create like nice little horizontal scrolling that you see here. And this took us like 2 seconds. All we did was we took this gallery container, we sent it to fill our auto layout container, or we can set a fixed width, like we can do something like that too. Not that that's going to work really well, but it's going to go all the way to the end of this frame. So if I left it like this, it'll scroll a bit, but we won't be able to see the rest, no matter how much we pull. And there you go. That's how you create a very simple horizontal scroll. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on more horizontal scrolling, but this time, instead of a very simple horizontal scroll that we just worked on, we are going to work on something like a hijack scroll, and I'll show you what that is. So let's go into our prototypes page and press play. So if we go all the way down to our horizontal scroll, we can see, we created something like this. But what happens if we don't want the user to be able to scroll through them all so quickly? So if I drag and just goes to this next photo and drag back, it's kind of like hijacking that scroll for me. I can't drag it too much. So let me show you how you can do that. So we come over here, we have that prototype. It's really simple. If you click all the way into that prototype, you see this huge gallery frame inside the section. And all I am doing here is on drag, goes to the next page. And it's pretty simple. We're just using the gentle smart animation, keeping it simple. And on the next one, you have 2 on drags. You have one going back to this page and one going to the next page. So let's do it together. We're going to go back to our assets page. And if you still have that image, you can use that one, or we can drag a new copy because it's all the same, to be honest. And we can open this up a bit so we can see what we're dealing with. Okay, so let's make a new copy. And over here, what we're going to do is we're going to break this auto layout container because we're going to have to drag this all the way here. Like that. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to create a duplicate. So Command D or Control D creates a new button. Go into that gallery, shift it one more time. Like that. Boom. We're going to drag it. We're just going to keep on doing this. And I think we have one more. There we go. I think that's good. Okay. So we have our designs in place. And all we're going to do is we're going to select this one. So on drag to the next. And, if it's hard for you to see, you can kind of stack them on one another. Maybe that could help. Side by side is a little hard to see, so we can stack them. So let's do this. We already got one going on drag. Oh, sorry, it's on click right now. On drag. We're just going to keep it gentle. Let's select this one. We'll go back on drag. We're keeping everything the same. We'll go below on drag. Don't forget that. It's easy to forget it when you're just going so fast. On drag. And let's do that over here. Not navigate to on drag. We gotta do this a couple more times so we're done. On drag. And the last one. I promise this is worth it. On drag. Okay. So we have our prototype. You can take this prototype and put it back in like a straight line if you want. Flow starting point. So this one's going to be called flow 2. Let's press play. So we had flow 1 where we had this very simple drag here. I can't make it smaller. So we had this very simple one where we, dragging nicely. And there you go. This is what our hijack scroll looks like. And I think it looks amazing. And if you're following along, yours probably looks just as good. Hey everyone, and welcome back. So if you've been following along, you probably have some beautiful prototypes, designs, components. But if you want to go the extra mile, we have an assignment for you. So let's jump right in. So you can continue creating this amazing mobile app, this photo inspiration mobile app to be more specific. If you want, create some simple interactive components to handle some other interactions, like maybe the navigation. What does it look like to change from another state to a next on that nav? Think about stringing together maybe some multiple prototypes to show off different parts of the app. Or if you're feeling ambitious, try exploring those parts of the app a bit more in depth, because what does it look like to unlike and like a bunch of gallery images? Do you have like a little gallery page or a loved page or a favorited page that you have? There's so many things that you can do there, like swiping back and forth to delete and, maybe save, or I don't know. There's so many options to explore there just to test out your new skills. And if you've been following along, that's great. You have some stuff. If you haven't, go at your own pace. Some people like to learn differently. If you want to take in all that knowledge and just apply it afterwards, totally up to you. We all end up at the same place eventually. And I forgot to mention, don't forget to join our private online community on Discord. I promise you that this is one of the best resources from ZTM. We have some other students there, mentors, and even instructors like myself that are always willing to help if you have a question, just want to share your work, or if you want to have a great discussion.